Please check my community board for said updates and polls. This conversation is pertaining to Gypsy Rose. She has been talking to different media outlets about her situation with her then mother, Dee'S Blanchard. But in one of the conversations, she said something about Mr. Godejohn, co-conspirator who killed her mother. And she brought forward an allegation against him that he abused her, which I find very odd. So we're going to dissect that allegation against Mr. Godejohn. We're also going to discuss the mental state of her mother. One profiler believes that Munchausen by proxy is not a mental disorder, but a behavior. Thank you for joining me. Let's do a little digging into this case. The ins and outs of everything pertaining to her. Hold on one second, trying to get situated, everybody. It's not working out right now. Okay. Hold on one second, everybody. Who is Gypsy Rose? Gypsy Rose Blanchard orchestrated her mother Dee'S 2015 murder after suffering years of abuse in an apparent Munchausen syndrome by proxy case. After serving 8.5 years, she was released December 2023. Biography is the source of this information. 1991 to present. Gypsy Rose Blanchard has served her time for planning her mother Dee'S murder in 2015. In the 2 weeks since she left prison, the 32-year-old has been busy. Blanchard appeared on The View, attended the red carpet event for Lifetime's new documentary, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, and has amassed quite the following on her social media accounts. On January 9th, her ebook release, Conversations of On the Eve of Freedom, arrived. Blanchard collaborated with co-authors Melissa Moore and Michelle Matriskiani on the book. I'm so excited to finally share some big news, which is that a special ebook about my experiences will be published. Blanchard shared on social media in December. She describes the book as a collection of interview transcripts, journal entries, illustrations, and photos. Who is Gypsy Rose Blanchard? Gypsy Rose Blanchard is a convicted murderer and victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy who enlisted her then boyfriend Nicholas Godejohn to kill her mother, Dee'S Blanchard. Although Gypsy was in good health, Dee'S had everyone convinced her daughter had a number of illnesses, including leukemia, from a young age. In June of 2015, then 24-year-old Gypsy helped Godejohn sneak into her Springfield home to stab her mother to death. Gypsy and Godejohn's arrest shocked the nation as it revealed that the Make-A-Wish and Habitat for Humanity recipient had never been sick at all. The ensuing trial fascinated the country and has inspired a number of documentaries and a scripted series. After being convicted of second-degree murder and serving more than 8 years in prison, Gypsy was released in December 2023 and is now married to Ryan Scott Anderson. Early life. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born in Golden Meadow, Louisiana on July 27, 1991. By the time she was born, her parents, Claudine, Dee'S, and Rod, had already separated, with the latter saying he realized he got married for the wrong reasons. Rod tried to stay in communication with his daughter and saw her fairly regularly up until 2004, when Dee'S and Gypsy moved. Very interesting. Now remember, the storm of Katrina did not happen until late summer 2005. Gypsy was 3 months old when her first alleged health problems surfaced. 3 months old now. leading to multiple overnight hospital stays for sleep apnea. Now that's interesting because I've never heard of a baby having sleep apnea, so that's a new one. Although tests returned no positive results, Dee continued seeking treatment for a myriad of medical issues, which would go on to include leukemia, muscular dystrophy, asthma, vision and hearing impairment, seizures, and an unspecified chromosomal disorder. Gypsy was also made to use a wheelchair, feeding tube, and breathing machine. Her mother pulled her out of school before she even hit the third grade, citing the severity of her health issues. So now you get information that she was taken out of school before she even made it to the third grade, and it has been alleged that when she entered prison, she had the capacity of a first grader. Now think about that. Had not made it to the third grade. So that means she's finished the second grade. But her IQ level was of a first grader when she first went into the prison system. Gypsy spent her childhood undergoing a host of surgeries, one to remove her salivary glands. She had her teeth pulled when they started to rot, perhaps due to all of the medications she was on, or her lack of salivary glands. By 2008, when they lived in Missouri, Dee had a locked closet at their home, filled from top to bottom with organized medications for Gypsy. Dee Blanchard's long con. In reality, Gypsy could walk, didn't have leukemia, and certainly didn't need any of those surgeries. In fact, some of her issues were likely due to the amount of unnecessary medications Gypsy was on. She also wasn't actually bald. Her mother was just shaving her head to keep up the rules that she had cancer. Experts believe Dee's behavior is evidence of a mental illness called factitious disorder imposed on another, more commonly known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. It likely led her to fake or even cause her daughter's poor health so she could receive sympathy and praise from others for being a caregiver to a sick child. And keep that in mind when I bring you the information from the profiler assessment of Dee Brown's mental state. Medical tests often prove inconclusive, if not negative. But any time a doctor questioned Gypsy's diagnosis, Dee simply found a new provider. Due to her past experiences as a nurse's aide, she knew how to speak to medical professionals and how to accurately describe the symptoms of each condition. Very interesting. I had not heard that before. So now we hear she's moved around when doctors started questioning the child's medical condition, plural. And I figured that as much. She moved around because somebody got to asking too many questions. So she got nervous and scared, moved. And you hear Gypsy mentioning this. Since being released, she never understood, I guess, why they moved around so much. They did move around a lot. So this is possibly the reason, as not to be detected with bringing forward false information about her child. So she'd skip out. Once again, she could accurately describe the symptoms of each condition because she was once a nurse's aide. She also knew what medications could mimic the symptoms of certain illnesses she claimed Gypsy had. Dee was always the one to speak during hospital visits, while Gypsy was meant to sit quietly, holding a toy or a stuffed animal. Very interesting information there. Very reasons that she could walk, she wasn't sick, she felt okay because the mother was always present. And now you hear the mother had knowledge of medications. So the mother possibly could have been also giving her medicines to make her sick. And this is where the doctor's fail comes in. How in the world did you not know this young lady was not ill? It's very baffling information. And a doctor has now come forward to give his rendition of his dealings with Dee and Gypsy. Dee was charming and so devoted to her daughter that most people didn't want to question her. If they did, Dee would just pick up and move. When she took Gypsy to live with her own father and stepmother, Dee told people Rod was a drug addict who had abandoned her. Keeping Rod at arm's length meant he wouldn't interfere with her medical con. Very interesting. So now we're talking about others questioning Dee. And it says here, if they did, Dee would just pick up and move. She also moved in with her father and stepmother and told people that the father, Rod, was a drug addict, very interesting, who had abandoned her. Keeping Rod at arm's length meant he wouldn't interfere with her medical con. Exactly. So that's why I asked the questions a week ago. Did the father ever reach out to her when they moved to Missouri? Did he ever try to visit? Did he even have a phone number? Did she ever let him, did Dee ever talk to him or let him talk to the daughter? Probably not. Later, Dee and Gypsy moved to Slidell, closer to New Orleans, after Gypsy's grandparents began to question her need for a wheelchair. There, the devastation of Hurricane Katrina proved advantageous for Dee. She said all of Gypsy's medical records and birth certificate had been destroyed, making her the sole expert on Gypsy's medical history. Very interesting. Used her made-up health issues in Hurricane Katrina to gain assistance so the two could move to Aurora, Missouri in 2005. In 2008, Habitat for Humanity built them a special pink house with a wheelchair ramp and jacuzzi tub in Springfield, Missouri. Gypsy and Dee also received charity-funded tickets to concerts where she got to meet artists like Miranda Lambert, Blake Shelton, and took a Make-A-Wish sponsored trip to Walt Disney World Resort. Footage of an American Cancer Society Relay for Life event shows Dee smiling at Gypsy while saying, "This is why I was born, to be your mama." Boy, that's very disturbing and just so pathetic of a parent to be this sick in the head that they would use their child in this manner. So I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions to how they were fooled by this woman. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions in the medical profession and people who came across their path. Suspicions of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. When Gypsy was 14 years old, she saw a neurologist who suspected the girl was a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but he never reported her case because he didn't think he had enough evidence. In 2009, two caseworkers visited Gypsy's home after someone anonymously called in a report that the child's health issues were fabricated. However, Dee was able to use her charm to convince them nothing was wrong. As Gypsy got older, Dee began lying about her age to make her seem younger and younger, even going so far as to alter her birth certificate more than once. Dee wouldn't let Rod wish his daughter a happy 18th birthday in 2009 because she told him Gypsy thought she was only 14 years old. At this point, Gypsy wasn't allowed to go to school or hang out with friends. See, this is baffling to me. The man would know how old his child is because naturally he helped make her. So how would you, this is crazy to me. How could she explain to him she thinks she's younger? She would only think that if you told her that. And the father should have known then that something wasn't right. So they obviously have had contact with each other because how would he be able to try to wish the daughter a birthday, 18th birthday, but the mother is making up excuses that Gypsy thought she was younger. So see, this is where the father has to take some responsibility. Because he had to have had some type of phone contact to get this information and have a conversation with Dee. So once again, the state workers come to the home, 2009, after an anonymous tip, and she still wiggles her way out of that CPS visit, Miss Dee, who was no longer alive. So we now get information she altered the birth certificate, and she told the father that the child thought she was 14 years of age. At this point, Gypsy wasn't allowed to go to school or hang with friends. That's got to be devastating not to have any friends. Early childhood videos seem to show Gypsy as a bright young girl. However, Dee told everyone she had the mental age of 7. Gypsy couldn't even leave the house unless accompanied by her mother, who would hold her hand at all times and squeeze it if Gypsy she would squeeze it if she wanted Gypsy to stop talking. Very interesting. Despite what Dee said, Gypsy knew she was physically able to walk, and in 2011, she tried to escape her mother by running away with a man she met at a science fiction convention. However, Dee was able to track her down, then convince the man that Gypsy was underage, even though she was actually 19 at the time. Upon returning home, Gypsy said her mother smashed her computer, tied her to the bed, and threatened to crush her fingers if she tried to run away again. Gypsy also said her mother sometimes hit her, called her names, and denied her food. Although she was afraid, this incident only made Gypsy more determined to find a connection with someone other than her mother. So now you get wind that she ran away at 19. So this is why some people judge her to why didn't she go get help? Because if you can run out of the house, you could have hollered, screamed, hey, this lady's trying to kidnap me. I'm an adult, I'm not a kid. She's been lying all this time. I think somebody probably would have called the police, and then the police could have used deduction along with the state to ascertain, okay, this girl's been living a lie and her mother put her up to it, because her walking would be the proof. So actually all this could have ended with this information now being released that she ran off and the mother found her. So then you got to ask, how did the mother find her? She must have checked her computer to see what she was doing on the computer, and maybe that led to where she went, and that's how the mother found her. This is very interesting information. Relationship with ex-boyfriend Nicholas Godejohn. In 2012, Gypsy was able to get back online. Let's see, let's go back to the guy she met that year. So 2011, they said she tried to escape. So 1 year later, she's back online, and this is where she meets Nicholas Godejohn on a Christian dating website. He lives 600 miles from Gypsy in Wisconsin, but they continued communicating online for over 2 years. 1 year into the relationship, Gypsy came clean about her faux medical issues. I just couldn't lie to him anymore, and I just told him everything, she said in the 2017 HBO documentary, Mommy, Dad, and Dearest. Their online relationship was centered around role play, BDSM, and fairy tale fantasies about the future. And they kept in touch via Gypsy's various secret Facebook profiles. Now, one of you had mentioned that before in the chat about the BDSM, and I didn't even know what that was. Okay, S&M is what I've always heard. So that means he was a little bit knowledgeable about role playing, whatever. Very interesting. In March 2015, they arranged to meet each other for the first time at a movie theater in Springfield, Missouri. Now, please listen to this information, because this is why I'm doing this video. It's the allegation she has said publicly in an interview that he abused her. So they met in a movie theater in Missouri to see Cinderella. The hope was that Dee'S would like Godejohn after meeting him in person, and that the theater run-in would erase any suspicions of how the pair had met. Instead, Dee'S got jealous of the attention her daughter was paying to Godejohn. That was a very long argument that lasted a couple of weeks, yelling, throwing things, calling me names. I guess she was calling her a bitch, slut, and whore. Gypsy would tell ABC News. When that failed, Gypsy began talking to Godejohn about saving her by killing her abusive mother. They formulated a plan, and Gypsy paid for Godejohn to take a bus from Wisconsin to Missouri to commit the murder. Where I'm confused at this information now is that he's came to her town, they go to the movies, so that means what? The mother was there at the movies with her, I would assume, because she always went places with the daughter. So that means all three of them were in the movie theater together. What doesn't make any sense? If they went in the restroom to have sexual relations, wouldn't the mother be to leave together? So what did he say? Oh, I'm going to wheel her to the bathroom. We'll be right back. See, this is very odd to me, this bathroom incident, now that I'm reading it. Because it says, instead, Dee'S got jealous of the attention her daughter was paying Godejohn. So you can only get jealous if you see the people around each other, or you know that they're talking on the phone. So all of them were in the movie theater together. This is very odd information here. So they formulated a plan, and Gypsy paid for Godejohn to take a bus from Wisconsin to Missouri to commit the murder. And you also heard that she had stolen money from the mother to get him to Missouri. On June 14th, 2015. Disturbing posts on Dee Dee and Gypsy's shared Facebook page, like "That bee is dead," led concerned neighbors and friends to alert the cops. During a wellness check, police found Dee Dee face down in her bedroom. She had been stabbed 17 times in the back and had reportedly been dead for days. Initially, cops worried Gypsy, who they thought was sickly, had either been killed or kidnapped by the killer. So now you learn that the mother and the daughter had a shared Facebook page. So this goes to show you the mental state of this woman, that she was just detached from the world. And I've met people who have shared Facebook pages, couples, and I don't agree with that. That makes no sense for a man and a woman or a young couple to be sharing a Facebook page. Why? A couple sharing a phone. That's strange. To me, that makes me believe nobody has trust. Because everybody should want his or her own phone, whether you talk on the phone or not, whether you frequent Facebook or not. Why would you be sharing a Facebook page and sharing a phone? It's very odd behavior, but I have seen it done with people who are in relationships. But this is even more disturbing. But we know why they shared the Facebook page, because she didn't trust her daughter, of course. Okay. It was at that point that Gypsy's neighbor and confidant, Aaliyah Wood-Mancy, decided to tell police about Gypsy's secret online boyfriend. So that means Gypsy had to have told this person this information about the boyfriend. Aaliyah had kept printouts of conversations Gypsy had given her, which helped the officers identify and quickly locate Godejohn. Less than 48 hours later, the cops arrested the pair at Godejohn's home. So now we have to ask Gypsy, why would you give her a printout of your conversations? This makes no sense to me. But this goes to show you her mindset was warped at that time, and possibly may still be warped. Revealing the truth was much more shocking and complex. Not only would Gypsy walk on her own, but she also had orchestrated her own mother's murder to, in Gypsy's words, escape her control and abuse. In a police interview, she seemed saddened to hear of her mother's death, but her behavior immediately followed the murder indicated otherwise. So now you got to go back, fast forward. If officials believe she didn't appear remorseful, then should we be believing that she's remorseful now? Now, it's not to say that a person can't change his or her mind about what they did and how they felt at that time versus the present. So maybe she didn't have any remorse at that time. So let's ask that question. Was she actually remorseful then? Number one. Is she remorseful now? Or is this all a game? Because there are some people who are speaking negatively of this young lady, that she should be locked up. She should have gotten as much time as Mr. Godejohn. And his defense team is also trying to get him an appeal, if you did not know this. Okay. Back to where I was. Her behavior immediately followed the murder indicated otherwise. Okay. Gypsy and Godejohn had sex in her bedroom, then fled the house, taking $4,000, mostly from Rod's child support payments, with them. Very interesting. They hunkered down in a motel outside of Springfield for a few days and were caught on security cameras shopping at a local Walmart. Gypsy was spotted wearing a blonde wig and walking without assistance as they caught a Greyhound bus to Godejohn's Wisconsin home, where they had shipped the murder weapon. See, that's even more bizarre. Why not just throw it in a river, throw it in a lake, throw it in a garbage can? The entire murder is just whack, because you're talking about two people who obviously had mental problems plotting the death of a woman and executing it. That's why they got caught. So they've shipped the murder weapon to his house. They thought they had gotten away with the murder, and video footage Gypsy had taken in her motel room showed the pair acting very giggly and making sexual jokes. This is where I have the problem with Miss Gypsy Rose. Her allegation publicly that he abused her. Why would you go in the bathroom, have sex with him, keep talking to him, have him murder your mother, okay, everybody? Then leave with him. No, before leaving with him, you had sex with him in your room, allegedly. He alleged. Shaved your legs, shaved her pubic area. Then you run off with him to a hotel, then to his parents' house, where you all were apprehended. And now, fast forward many years later, you claim you were abused by your mother and abused by this guy. but yet you were right there with him up until the very end of the arrest and still was communicating with him in the jail through messages on the wall and hiding things in the recreational room. Wow. Trial and conviction. The horror at Dee'S, who suffered years of abuse at the hands of her mother. In Missouri, a first-degree murder charge can carry the death penalty or sentence of life in prison without parole. But prosecutor Dan Patterson opted not what he dubbed an extraordinary and unusual case. Gypsy's attorney was able to bring the charge down to second-degree murder after obtaining medical records that showed proof of the abuse. Gypsy was reportedly so malnourished that she gained 14 pounds in the county jail, a situation in which most people lose weight. Okay. But we do know that people do gain weight. You either lose weight in jail because you're worried that you're not going to get out of there, or you worry about your life, your finances, family, children, things like that. But most people do gain weight when they go to prison or jail. I think most people know that. Because you're not doing anything, you're not active. In July of 2016, Gypsy accepted a plea agreement, pleading guilty to second-degree murder with a sentence of 10 years in prison and the option to apply for parole after serving 8 years. The time Gypsy spent in the Greene County Jail prior to her prison sentence also counted toward her overall sentence, life in prison. According to a Springfield News Leader article, Gypsy spent her time in Missouri's Chillicothe Correctional Center working on earning her GED, assisting screenwriter turned family friend Francesca Maselli in research for, by proxy, a proposed scripted series about her case, and making friends through the prison pen pal program. Very interesting. So she had a family friend that she worked with to bring forward a series about her life. Her stepmother, Christy Blanchard, told the publication in 2018 that Gypsy was thriving in prison. Despite everything, she still tells me that she's happier than with her mom, and that if she had a choice to either be in jail or back with her mom, she would rather be in jail. Very interesting. For Gypsy, it's a lot of freedom, her stepmother said. And you've heard her tell you this in a documentary, that she was happy to go to jail. First time she saw the picnic bench, she was glad that she could go over to that bench and sit down, meet other people she could talk to. Now, most people will say, well, those people, are trouble. Spirit's trouble. That's why they're in jail. Naturally, people go to jail for different reasons. But to her, that was freedom because she never had friends. She never made friends. She didn't hang with other children like normal kids do. She didn't go anywhere except for things that were pertaining to her illness and scripted events exacted by her mother, Dee Blanchard. Husband. Gypsy had been married to Ryan Scott Anderson since June 27, 2022. Though the marriage was officially recorded July 21st of that year, the two met when Anderson reached out to share his sympathy with Gypsy after watching Mommy Dead and Dearest. The emails turned into visits, which turned into a friendship that later turned into more than a friendship. Family friend Francesca Maselli said in an interview with In Touch, at the beginning of this year, they decided to get engaged. Prior to meeting Anderson, Gypsy was briefly engaged to a man known only as Kent, who she met through her prison's pen pal program. They got engaged in April of 2019, though her stepmother confirmed Gypsy and Kent had called off the engagement 2 months later. Maselli said in 2021 In Touch article that Gypsy had dated multiple men from behind bars. I'm afraid she'll meet someone and marry him. The support groups, the Gypsy support groups, they attach themselves to Gypsy, and a lot of them just want fame. One of the guys was 20 years older. They'd already broken up, Maselli said. Very interesting. So now we have to ask that about Mr. Ryan Anderson. Are you only dating her, married to her, to get fame? You knew eventually she would be getting out of prison. She told you how much time she had in prison. So you waited the long haul, and you were right there when she got out, toting her around to all these events, interviews, New York City, premieres for Lifetime. Is this a fame whore, Mr. Anderson? Just asking. Release date. Gypsy's father, stepmom, community of supporters unsuccessfully pushed for Missouri's governor to pardon Gypsy after she was sentenced to 10 years for second-degree murder. In September 2023, the communications director for the Missouri Department of Corrections confirmed to In Touch that Gypsy had been granted parole and would be released early on December 28, 2023. After serving 85% of her 10-year sentence, Gypsy was released from Chillicothe Correctional Center around 3:30 that morning. Her husband, Ryan, picked her up from the facility. Movies and TV shows about Gypsy Rose. Gypsy's case was thrust into the spotlight following a 2016 BuzzFeed News article titled "Dee wanted her daughter to be sick, Gypsy wanted her mom murdered," and quickly went on to inspire a number of documentaries and scripted series. Now, this is from 2016, an article by BuzzFeed. HBO's documentary Mommy Dead and Dearest debuted in May 2017 and was followed by a 2017 Dr. Phil episode called Mother Knows Best, a story of Munchausen by proxy and murder, both of which featured interviews with Gypsy, and you can get clips of that in the YouTube queue if you're interested. Good Morning America and James Patterson's Murder is Forever Investigation Discovery Series released episodes about the case in 2018. That same year, ABC aired Gypsy's first network interview for prison, a special episode 2020 called The Story of Gypsy Blanchard. The Act, a Hulu series based on Michelle Dean's BuzzFeed News article, first aired in March 2019 and earned actor Joey King an Emmy nod for her performance as Gypsy. Patricia Arquette took home an Emmy and a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress for her portrayal of Dee. This is the one documentary that Gypsy Rose is not fond of, The Act, from my understanding. Although it was critically acclaimed, Gypsy dubbed the series unfair and unprofessional for using her real name and story without her consent. There will be legal action taken against the show's creators, Gypsy told Bustle via email. No information is publicly available about whether Gypsy pursued legal action or the status of any resulting litigation. So is she going to follow through with suing the creators of The Act? Very curious. Lifetime's Love You to Death billed itself as inspired by true events, though used different character names. Sony Entertainment Television CID released an episode called Death on Social Media, which was inspired by the case, and Netflix's The Politician also featured characters based on Gypsy, Godejohn, and Dee. Well, I guess Netflix knew not to use her name for a documentary without her permission, so they don't get sued, because that's how they lose the money. Lifetime also released a 6-hour tell-all interview special called Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, January 5th, 2024. Gypsy is currently working with Maselli on a scripted series based on her life story, tentatively titled By Proxy. Thank you for joining me. Long-winded. I didn't intend to read all that, but I went ahead and read all of it, just in case there are people who are not familiar with the storyline or all the details. Naturally, this is her version pertaining to what was done to her by her mother. You're entitled to leave whenever you want. But there are some people who believe she is cut from her mother's cloth, that she is possibly manipulative. And as I've told you before, you can't just cut that type of behavior off. It's not just a light switch that cuts on, cuts off. That she's going to just stop being manipulative and not utilize what she was taught by her mother. She'd have to get therapy to utilize, to be able to get some help for anything that was nefarious taught to her by her mother. The stealing, the lies, so on and so forth. What will become of this young lady? Friends, family, everybody's now got something to say. Friend coming out to give her rendition pertaining to her. Is this man genuine? What about all the medical professionals who knew something wasn't right? A doctor has now spoken out. I will do another live stream pertaining to that. But this afternoon's commentary is about Mr. Nick Godejohn. Her allegations that he abused her. I'm going to try to pull up some information of her saying this. And I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with it. For the obvious reason. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's see. Many people have made fake accounts on IG pertaining to her, and she has let everybody know that these are fake accounts. The one with the check is her actual legitimate account. She's taking some new pictures with her sister, her husband, and then there was the one with the nephew. There's been a lot of BuzzFeed about her directing people to go to his IG accounts, which some people don't approve of that. But she said, I got permission to take a picture with him, blah, blah, blah. But no, she shouldn't be telling girls to go to his account. I think he would know how to do that on his own if he wanted to get a girlfriend, so on and so forth. So I'm scrolling down her IG page because I want you all to hear something she has said about being abused by Mr. Godejohn. Hope I can find it. 1 second. Well, it was up here somewhere. Let me see if this is it.
With Nick, there was some sexual abuse coming from a place where I never had a sex life. I never felt safe. It was like being used and abused. With Ryan, he didn't say, oh, we have to have sex the first night. It was like, if you want to, let it happen naturally. Because I was like trying to plan everything, and I was so nervous. I'm like, what happens if he doesn't like the way I look? Or, you know, I'm nervous about just being naked too, because I have scars on my body. So in prison, it's not like he got to see me before he married me. So, you know, they say, you know, you got to drink the milk before you buy the cow. And that didn't happen for us. So I was extremely nervous. But then, like, within like 10 minutes, I was like, okay, this is happening. And I felt totally comfortable and totally safe. I have a past of sexual abuse. So I was molested when I was 9 by my grandfather. In my relationship with Nick, there was some sexual abuse coming from.
Going to pause right there. If you want verification for this information, this is on her IG page. It's open to the public, which I don't think it should be, but that's her choice. Because as I said, she's already complained to the stepmother about negative comments about Ryan, and she was instructed to ignore the comments. But that's the point. You have put yourself out here to be seen. You put yourself out here to be interviewed by The View, going to the Lifetime premiere, talking to different news agents, doing a book, so on and so forth. So when you put yourself out here, and then you also having open social media pages, one could say, well, you like the attention, but why do it? You should know that people are going to respond if you have an open social media page. It's common sense. You are worried about what people are going to say, then have it private. Have it private. The commentary here, I've been abused by my mother whole life. She feels like she was abused by Nick Godejohn. I want to understand, Gypsy Rose, how do you feel like you were abused by him? I have tried to support this young lady, but I always say I will change my mind at any given time if I hear or see something that's suspect to me, and that is where I am now 2 to 3 weeks in from her release from prison. I don't agree with this assertion that she was abused by Nick, because everything leading up to the moment she met him, from the moment she met him up until the arrest of both, how was he abusing you? You sought out a man on a date site. You talked to him for a while before even meeting him. You met him at the picture show. Allegedly, you all had sex in the restroom. You continued to deal with him after that. Your mother scolding you about him. So that probably pushed you more to want to be involved with the young man. You two meet up to murder your mother. Allegedly, you went in the restroom, shaved your legs, pubic area, while he's murdering your mother, and you can hear your mother screaming. He alleges you all had sex after the murder. And I have not heard if she has admitted to that or not. I'll have to watch these docuseries to see if she admits to that. So, mother dead, alleged sex in a room afterwards. You are now shaving your own pubic area, and I can't see him making that up. I don't think he made that up either. You would have done that for yourself. Whether your mother groomed you to do those things or she did it for you, rather, I believe he told the truth about that. So that means you wanted to be without hair for whatever reason. Then you run away with this man. You stolen money from your mother. You stay in a hotel for a couple of days, and then you go to his house. You've mailed a weapon to his house. You have full knowledge of all this. And now you get released from prison and you say he abused you. That's not fair to him. Because many people believe that he is also mentally undeveloped. And the fact that he would post things to your mother's Facebook page, allegedly, I believe they said he did that, that shows there's something wrong with him, because that's not normal behavior to post to social media after murdering somebody. That sounds like something a kid would do. A kid goes and wrecks a car or rolls toilet paper around somebody's house. You know, not trying to compare that to murder, but just saying the tattletale syndrome is childlike in nature. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I egged the neighbor's house, or I vandalized the car or truck or swimming pool, whatever, vandalized the building. That sounds like something a young person would do, to go admit it. Because most people who are adults, who have an adult thinking mind, if they commit a crime, they're not going to go to social media and admit they did that. Why would they want to do that and get caught? So this shows me he has a slow mentality. And now you've gotten out and you now want to blame this guy to say, oh, he abused me. That's not right. So now I have to ask myself, if you'll lie about that, which I think you are lying, what else have you lied about pertaining to Dee Blanchard? Now, as they said, the state attorneys bumped it down to second degree because they did know that you were abused, and your lawyer brought proof that you were abused. You also testified on behalf of Mr. Godejohn in court that you orchestrated this hit on your mother. You played a role. So how can you testify on his behalf years ago, get out of prison, and have the audacity to say during an interview with this vile, whoever these people are, vile fouls, that he abused you? If you felt abused by Godejohn after you first had sex with him in the bathroom, you didn't go run out of there saying, hey, he raped me, he assaulted me. You didn't tell your mother that he assaulted you, raped you. You didn't even tell that friend that. You gave her private messages, which is very bizarre and, once again, childlike. So that's expected. You still have the mind of a child at 24 years of age. First grade education is what's been reported. So you had a childlike mind, and so did he. So you were in tune with this man up until being arrested, up until 1 year of being in jail, and then you cut him loose, and then you start dating other guys. Naturally, you go to prison, you move on. He felt like you two were married just because you two had sex, because that means he didn't know any better mentally. Yes, he's in jail, admitting to killing the mother, bragging about it, but he still had a deficient mind. There's still, I believe, something wrong with this young man. And when you watch him in the court trial, you could see that he looked like he was in another planet. So now the defense wants to seek an appeal. And as I've told many people, laws are different in various states pertaining to conspiracy and the actual person who commits the crime. One person may get a lighter sentence, which is the orchestrator. The murderer usually gets a stiffer prison term, or it could be they both get the same term. The laws are different in every state. Once again, her words of being abused by Mr. Godejohn.
Of sexual abuse. So I was molested when I was 9 by my grandfather. In my relationship with Ned, there was some sexual abuse coming from a place where
So you're going to compare being molested by your grandfather to being abused by Nick Godejohn when we already know you and Nick did not spend that much time together. So has she talked herself into believing she's been abused by this man? You were not a child. You were not a minor when he met you. So it's not like he committed statutory rape, forced rape, because that's going to be your word against his. And the fact that you still had contact with him would lead people to believe that any act that you had with him sexual was consensual. And I'm just going to say, I believe it was. Because you talked to him a long time. He came to see you. Allegedly, you had sex at the theater. You still kept talking to him. Your mother's furious that you two are talking. She's jealous, blah, blah, blah. You follow through with the murder. You run away with him. You still had contact with him in the jail. And now I'm supposed to believe now, all these years later, he assaulted you. The relationship was short-lived. So how did he assault you? So what are you trying to say? Hey, kill my mother, but I don't want to have any sexual relations with you. And then she then takes that assertion and compare it to her husband. Oh, he didn't want to do anything. He wasn't trying to force me to do anything that night. Are you serious? So basically, you're throwing this guy under the bus. That he assaulted you, sexually assaulted you. That night and the trip to his house. That's what you're saying. He forced you to have sex that night and also in the bathroom at the movie theater, but yet you still kept dealing with him. I understand most abuse can be mental and maybe not physical. But basically, that's what you're saying about Mr. Godejohn. That he assaulted you and you had a diminished capacity and you rode the ride to conspire to kill your mother, steal money from your mother, ride into the sunset with this same abuser up until the very end of being arrested, interrogation, and also being inside of jail. This is what you are saying to the public about Mr. Godejohn. And as you said in an interview, I've done my time. I wish him well on his journey. Well, as I said in that live stream, he doesn't have a journey because his journey is life in prison without the possibility of parole. So his journey is going to end in that prison if the state don't let him out early. Let's hear what the profiler has to say about the mother's mental state. This profiler is claiming that it's a behavior, not a disease, Munchausen by proxy. I think I will agree. Because you can come up with 1,000 reasons why Dee did this to her child. We can't blame Katrina now, really. Because I believe she was making the girl sick even as an infant. Because I've just read you that commentary that says she started having problems at 3 months, something about sleep apnea. So then you have to ask yourself, was Dee doing something to the child when she was an infant? We also heard something about a heart murmur in another information source. Do not know if that's true or not. But I believe she helped make her sick. The fact that she was underweight, that means she was not giving her vital food. And then what you have to ask yourself about that is, this girl is old enough to walk to the refrigerator and get food out. So how could she have been malnourished? She could walk around the house. So now that you're going to question, did the mother have food barricaded and locked in a room, storage, pantry, or did she even have a lock on the refrigerator, the cabinets? Stay woke. Because this girl is acting out at some point. I want out of here. I'm doing this. I'm online. She's running away to meet some guy, remember? Then she met him at the theater. So she's been doing stuff as an adult, but never ran to the police to say, hey, I got a story to tell you. I've been living a lie. So we do know she had the capacity to run away because she did do that, and Dee found her. Why didn't she yell, holler, scream that fateful day when Dee Dee found her. I'm not going with you. I'm not going with you, lady. You're abusing me. You're holding me hostage, captive. I don't want to live this life anymore. I can walk, everybody. Don't you think people will start to look around and say, what the hell's going on here? Of course they would.
7 years ago, there were a lot of problems.
Brief intermission. Let's hear from this profiler what she has to say about Dee Dee Blanchard's behavior. Mental illness or behavior, which is it? Many say it's a disease. Is it a disease? Because she's going to break it down and let you know in her expertise, it's just a behavior. And that she would have done this anyway. Miss Dee Dee Blanchard. No matter what she was going through in life, she was already a psychopath. Very interesting information.
Well, but they're also going to make you a reality show. There's no way that you're just going to sit in a chair and talk about your life anymore. You're going to be...
Hold on one second. It kind of jumped. That was near the end. Sorry about that. I already had this queued up, but it was...
And this is an open letter to you from me. And what does that actually mean? Well, obviously it's a letter through YouTube. And it's an open letter because I'm hoping other people, not just you, but other people who have issues that they've been dealing with their lives, and people who've seen the Lifetime documentary recently and maybe read your book. And I just want to say right up front, folks, read her book. It's a short book, but I thought it was very impactful, and I loved reading it. And Gypsy, I think you did a good job with it. And I'm looking forward to your full life story that I know you're going to be putting out at some point. But I really like this book, and I don't often recommend books, so there's that. Okay, so why am I doing this open letter to you, Gypsy? It's because after watching the Lifetime documentary and reading your book, there were things that I thought were left unsaid or were incorrect that I think you need to hear from a criminal profiler, because I think they can impact the way you look at the future and the way you look at your past. So I'm going to start out with your past. You lived a very difficult time with your mother, who clearly suffered from, and I put quotes around the suffer because that's the way they always present it, suffered from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And it's listed as a psychiatric disorder, a mental disorder. But that's incorrect. And if you think that Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen syndrome by proxy, for those who do not know, Munchausen syndrome is a person who either they might claim that they have diseases, they might claim they've been raped, they make claims that aren't true in order to get attention to themselves. Sometimes they even injure themselves in order to get attention. And Munchausen syndrome by proxy, that person says, well, I'm not doing that to myself, but I'm going to do it to somebody else. And it often is children, their own children. And in this case, Gypsy, it was you. And your mother decided to use you as a pawn in her game of power and control and attention seeking. Now, this has been labeled Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and people say it's a mental disorder. And therefore, what I saw, because you wrote a letter to your mom in your book, in the beginning of the book, and it was very heartfelt, and it really hit me here. But it also hit me here where I went, oh, don't do that, Gypsy, don't do that. Why did it bother me here, if not here? You've been dealing with, I have committed a crime, which you did, in getting someone to commit a crime for you, which is murdering your mother. You ended up in prison because of it, but you also realized you had a hand in taking the life of your mother. So you're doing some apologies for that. And you're also trying to accept that your mother had a mental disorder, which caused her to behave in the way she did. And you say, I still love you, Mom. And you believe, I think, that she was fine until she met your dad and they got together, and then things went badly and your dad left, and she fell off a cliff and developed this mental disorder called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And I want to tell you, that is absolutely not true, Gypsy. And it is important that you understand this, because this will dog you the rest of your life, because you do not understand who your mother was. Your mother did not develop Munchausen syndrome by proxy because of what your father, the marriage falling apart. That is not what happened. Your mother was already a psychopath when she was much younger. Something went wrong in her home growing up. So yeah, she might have suffered when she was a...
Let's interject right here. Very interesting information. Your mother was already a psychopath, Gypsy Rose, says this profiler, Miss Brown. Very interesting. Your mother was already ill. This was inevitable. And when I listened to this commentary the other day, first person came to mind was Lori Vallow Daybell. Checkmate. Chris Watts. Checkmate. Nobody saw the unraveling of the brain. Listen to me carefully now. Because this is what we do as humans. We're always looking for an explanation to why. Why? Some people never show signs of being a psychopath. Okay? Many people will probably go back in the book of life and they'll either assert what they thought they saw was strange, or I didn't notice anything with this lady and this baby. As I told you before, earlier, just now, really, I don't doubt that she was harming the baby. She was harming Gypsy as an infant, because that's a good point this lady is making. You think this happened because of your father leaving, because I mentioned that before too. Did this come about because the father left her? She wanted attention because nobody liked her, or she felt unloved. Oh, I've got this baby. He doesn't want to be with me. You hear what I just read to you, that he said he made a mistake by marrying her. He doesn't go into this to tell us why, sir. What was the mistake? Was her behavior erratic? You weren't attracted to her anymore? You two weren't getting along? Did she seem like she was acting mental? What was the reason? But as you hear the doctor here say, it ain't about no baby daddy. She was already ill from childhood. So Gypsy tells you, oh, he touched me as a child, granddaddy. He touched mama too after she had a car wreck. He was going in the room touching the mother. So then I asked you all, well, damn, was it, not to be what's the word I'm looking for? Too descriptive, but were they making sounds in the room? Because how do you say to yourself, my grandfather's touching my mother? Or is Gypsy making this up? Because some of us are thinking that he did touch her, because he has admitted to Banfield or on Banfield program, oh, she touched me first. So there is acknowledgement that there was touching going on. But children are curious, so they can touch private parts, their own private parts, because they may ask, well, what is this? So he's acknowledged that touching has went on, but denies reciprocating molesting the girl, Gypsy, at that time. So now we go fast forward, because allegedly somebody said it was 4 years of age. So see, I don't know what's the truth. Now on this podcast or whatever, she's talking to these people that I just played, it started at 9. So which is it, 4, 9? Some will say it doesn't matter. It will matter if you start seeing discrepancies in her allegations against the mother, grandfather, and now Mr. Godejohn. I find it very interesting. She's looping Godejohn in as a perpetrator alongside her mother and her grandfather. And I'm not here to say the grandfather didn't touch her. All I'm saying is it fair to loop Godejohn in as a predator? I don't think so. And I don't think he was a predator. I think she went right along with everything that went on between the two. If at any point she didn't want him touching her, she didn't have to have sex. She could have said, hey, you've killed my mother. That's enough for the night. So I'm supposed to believe all this preparation planning was just what?
A child that got attachment disorder. She couldn't, somehow she didn't learn how to care and love the way other human beings do. So I'm not going to get into whole family history on that. You know some of it with like your grandfather, right? All right. But something went wrong with her very early on. Psychopathy usually develops by 5 years old. And there was definitely evidence throughout your mother's life that she was not a truth teller. She was a liar, manipulator, and a few other things, and committed some criminal acts prior to meeting your father. Now, apparently she had your father came into her life, and even if he hadn't left, she might still have abused you.
Yes, very good point.
He would just be in the background. Because a lot of times guys who marry women who are psychopaths, I call them dope.
Going to play that again. Listen to this information about the father. Let's say the father had stayed with Dee, that this possibly was going to happen anyway. The father would have just played possum. Who comes to mind with this commentary? Kevin Frankie. The allegations against those kids out west of abuse, not allegations, but they were abused, by the mother. He sat idly by before when they had the YouTube channel. So he had to have knowledge and participating also in the abuse of the children. But this commentary here leads me to think of Kevin Frankie and Ruby Frankie. That the father played a role in being or acting dumb, like they don't know what's going on.
Father. Now, apparently she had your father came into her life, and even if he hadn't left, she might still have abused you. Tahid would just be in the background, because a lot of times guys who marry women who are psychopaths, I call them dolts, dolts, D-O-L-T-S. Meaning, as long as they get food on the table and some sex, and they can go to work every day and come home, they kind of leave everything else up to wifey. And they sort of ignore what's happening in front of them. So there's a lot of women who are married who actually killed their babies one after the other, and the husband's like, I didn't know. You didn't know because you got your needs met. You're an adult, and you didn't realize that your wife was doing these horrific things. You were like, I don't know why my kids died one after the other. Because your wife was killing them. But you didn't realize it. I think your dad was one of those guys who were married. If he had stayed married to her, I think the same thing would have happened. I just think he would have gone to work and not recognized what was going on in front of his eyes.
Very good point. Very good point.
And, so, no, your father didn't cause your mother to become an abusive mother, to make her a person that suffered from a psychiatric disorder known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So let me clear it up right now. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a behavior. It is not a mental disorder. It's a behavior of psychopathy. Behavior, what does that mean? Well, when certain people are psychopaths, some people just become con artists and politicians, whatever, but others become violent psychopaths and hurt other people, physically hurt other people. They become serial rapists. They become serial killers. And some become like your mom. They decide that they can get their power, control, thrills, possibly attention through the harming of other people. And they do it repetitively because one time just ain't enough. It's like Doritos. I just can't eat one. Gotta go back in the bag. One gives me a cheap thrill. That was so good. I want more. Same thing is true for psychopaths. They want more power and control, especially when their lives are kind of like going downhill. They're like, sometimes they lose a job or the girlfriend leaves them or whatever, and they go out and commit their crime again. Why? Because it gives them back power and control. And some of them get attention through it. They look in the papers and say, oh, they're talking about me. And they don't know.
Very good point. Look in the paper, they're talking about me. Look at me, they're talking about me on the news. Just like you have a lot of videos in the YouTube queue by different creators. What is all the fascination with Gypsy Rose? IGX probably hit an all-time high because of this woman being released from prison. Well, it was a famous case, I'm assuming. I've never heard of the case, but she's gotten out. She's got series made about her. That's why people are talking about her. Had there not been any docuseries, Dr. Phil, it probably wouldn't have been no big deal on social media and the news, okay? But this lady's making great points. She would have probably done this anyway to her daughter, whether she had a breakup with the father or not exactly. See, we think differently if we don't have the diagnosis of that type of person or the behavior of that person. So as I said, we look for stuff to try to equate with the behavior. Why? Why she do that? Why she do that? Why she do that? So you start looking for stuff. Oh, maybe she was homeless. Oh, she didn't have nowhere to stay. Oh, her boyfriend left her. Oh, the husband left her. Oh, she's insecure. Oh, she don't feel good. Oh, she's making her child sick because she's insecure. The husband left her. This doctor is telling you, no, that's not it. She was already ill. Something was already in Dee, whether the husband left or not. Very valid point. Always good to have a different perspective on things. Because this lady has obviously studied psychology. I have not. And she's saying this ain't no disorder. This is a behavior. The woman was already a psychopath. 9 times out of 10, started in childhood. She was going to act out at some point. When you go back in the book of life and you look at pictures of Dee Blanchard, she was an attractive lady when she was smaller. But I think as she got bigger and bigger and gained weight, she really didn't care about her appearance. But if you go back in the book of life and see the pictures of Dee holding Gypsy as an infant, a newborn, you can see she had long curly hair. She wore jewelry. I think she had her nails done. She cared about her appearance. But as time went by, she became frumpy looking. And naturally, you can be any size and look nice in your clothes, your accessories. It's a choice. So I believe she had no self-esteem as well. Woe is me. Because you can see the change from Gypsy's birth up until her death. She had gained a massive amount of weight, and she looked totally different than when she was younger, carrying her. Or after carrying her, excuse me. Major difference. Why was that?
It's me. Women who are psychopaths rarely are rapists, serial rapists, although there's
Very good point.
Serial killers.
Before we go there, thank you, Anna, because I tell you I forget stuff when I'm doing these live streams. I have to really take notes when I'm doing them. What is next exactly? You're now throwing Mr. Nick Godejohn under the bus, Gypsy Rose. Who are you going to say manipulated and used you when the fame dwindles down? Nobody's talking about you, because we're going to be probably talking about you for a while, some of us, because you're still working on another book, and you're going to probably be touring around the world talking about your abuse. So I give it a good 2-year run of all of this. But when all that dies down, what will the new allegation be? Because I don't believe Nick abused you, and that's the point of me doing this video today. I believe you have lied on him. I believe you consented with everything that came along with the courtship with Nick Godejohn up until your arrest and his arrest. And that is a low blow to throw the book at this young man that now he's abused you. When he has severed his own life for killing your mother, which was his choice, of course. But I do believe he has mental issues. No matter what he participated in online with sex and this and that, I still believe he has mental issues. You can still walk around and pretend and look like you have common sense, but it does not mean that you're mentally equipped. A lot of mentally undeveloped people have sex. Let's be truthful. They have babies. You have seen a lot of people undeveloped dating. Young people with Down syndrome, they date. They have boyfriends. They have girlfriends. So it's not like they're just in some bubble and they don't know anything about the world because they have some mental malfunction, autistic, whatsoever. They still can desire a man or a woman. They still want to touch a man or a woman. Great point. On the abuse hotline by Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Of people outside their family, well, that's not true. They rarely, except for Eileen Wuornos, who actually did kill the men she was prostituting, and then she would kill the Johns that were paying her. And that was one of the rare female killers, serial killers, who actually just shot people. And there are some female serial killers that hook up with other male serial killers, or they become a duo. But when female serial killers go into action, they usually kill their own children, which is Munchausen syndrome by proxy, one after the other, because you get pregnant, you get attention, and then after you have the baby, that you get a little attention, and then you have to take care of the stupid thing, and that becomes annoying. So you kill it, and you get more attention. Everybody feels sorry for you. You get a good funeral, and you start the process over. So you create your own victims, and then you kill the victims.
Wow, that's deep. Create your own victims. How interesting is that? Because it's a game, a sick game of some very sick people, because they're psychopaths. And many of you probably never thought of Dee'S as being a psychopath. But doctors know better because they've studied this type of behavior in patients, clients, given assessments for suspects who've been accused of murder or some type of abuse of another human being. This is a very poignant segment by Miss Brown. She assesses that she was a psychopath and that it would not have mattered if the father left her or not. She is still a psychopath. That this is not a medical condition, it is a behavior. You're entitled to your opinion. I will say I agree with the doctor. And it's obvious that she's not the only one walking around at that time as a psychopath. When you look at the behavior of Lori Vallow Daybell, Chris Watts, and so many others, they were mimicking what is expected of them. You will hear that from Lori Daybell's own son. She was a good mother up until meeting Chad. But then when you go back in the book and you listen to what her mother said, oh, we already knew she was crazy. See, stay woke. We already knew there was something wrong with Lori, says her mother. That's the point. There was going to be a jump off. And it was. First, the husband, Charles. The niece's husband, Mr. Boudreaux. Tammy Daybell, and then her two children. So this mother who was so nice, so attentive, how could she be misled to kill all of these people in attempted murder? Stay woke. Because it was already in her. Some just did not see the signs. It is the same with Miss Dee Dee Blanchard. Dee Dee Blanchard would have possibly killed Gypsy had they went toe-to-toe in that house. That's why she was tying her down. I find it strange this girl didn't have the strength to fight her mother. Because what are you doing while she's coming over with the duct tape? the rope, whatever she's using. Why didn't she fight her back? Did she try fighting her back? But Dee Dee was heavier. She outweighed her. Because most people are going to say, I'm not about to let you tie me up. I can walk. Hell, I'm not about to let you tie me up. So did she try to fight her mother when she tied her up after meeting that guy at that comic convention or whatever? And why not holler and scream when she approached you and made you go back home with her, Miss Blanchard? Why didn't you yell like you were on fire? Help me, help me. I don't want to go back. She's abusing me. She's been using me. I can walk. I'm not sick. Help me, help me, help me, please. Get this lady off of me. Checkmate.
That's a serial killer. It's a female version of a serial killer. Some female serial killers will kill their patients. A lot of them are nurses. Man, didn't your mother work as a nursing assistant? Yes, a lot of Munchausen syndrome by proxy people have been in the nursing profession. Why? I don't. It's interesting. They seem to go into it because they get power and control over patients, and some of them kill their patients. Many that have been in this business work in nursing homes on the midnight shift because no one seems to realize when they kill off the elderly in the night, and they get that thrill, power, control, the thrill, and sometimes attention. So your mother did all of those things with you. She was not a person who just suffered from a mental disorder. Your mother was a psychopath. And she was a psychopath who got her thrills and her power and control and attention by abusing the living hell out of you for year upon year upon year. Psychopaths do not love other people. I hate to say this to you, but your mother never loved you. She might like, well, psychopaths are interesting in that they can love a kid like they'd love a dog or a cat or their car. And when the car gets old, they just ditch it. And, sometimes if the dog is annoying, they'll just shoot it. And sometimes we've seen this with family annihilators. Here you have a guy and he's married, he has 2 children, he shows up at all their ball games. He's just the greatest dad ever.
Now you see she's talking about the annihilator. That's why I brought up Chris Watts, because it is eerily similar, the behavior. Gypsy Rose is really lucky to be alive, because I do believe it was going to come down to Dee Dee not wanting that secret out, that she's been lying and using the public for money, a house, Make-A-Wish program. I cannot let this secret out. I will do whatever I have to do. Here you have Miss Pat talking about the annihilator, because he's emulating what's expected of him. This is what people do who are psychopaths. Pretend I love my wife, pretend I love my children, go to work every day, smile, but deep down inside, I'm miserable as F-U-C-K.
And then all of a sudden one day, the whole family is murdered. And he's off with a stripper down in Florida. What? Wasn't he a great dad and a great husband? No, never. He was playing a part. That part at the time
Well said.
gave him cover for what he was doing.
Right.
And gave him some sense of power and control. But when those kids get older and they were being really annoying, like, I don't want to do that, Dad. And his wife had, 7 years has gone by, the 7-year itch. She's like, I'm kind of like bored with you. So, things get tougher in marriage along the way. And he's like, well, I don't have much power and control. I'm not getting the attention I want. If I just kill them all, I can go play someplace else. And that's what he does. And people said, but I can't believe he was such a good, he loved his children. No, he never loved his children any more than you would love a pawn on your chess game board. You can always love something as far as it does something for you. I do love my car. Do I have concern about my car's feelings? No. So when a person supposedly loves somebody, but they don't care about the feelings of the other person.
Exactly.
They don't really love them. It's all a fake.
Exactly.
It's all for them and them alone.
Exactly.
Your mother, Gypsy, was a psychopath.
Wow.
She never loved you. She never loved your dad. She never, that was not really part of her. A psychopath, go look up what psychopaths are. You're either useful or in the way.
Woo, honey, this is so powerful. Listening to this lady, oh, I guess because I'm thinking about something personal to me, and oh my goodness, it's true. You learn this also with sociopaths. Some doctors categorize Theodore Bundy as a sociopath. He was emulating what was expected of him. He had a girlfriend. The girlfriend had a child. He doted on the girlfriend. He doted on the child. But later in life, we learned that he also became violent with the girlfriend holding her head underwater one day when they were on a lake, I believe, in a canoe. So you have to ask yourself, did she continue to stay in a relationship with Theodore Bundy after that incident? I'm not really sure. The point is, when you go back in life with the Theodore Bundy case, you will have many people who will tell you he was very kind, he was charming. That's why that movie made about him, starring Mark Harmon many years ago on NBC, so creepy, The Deliberate Stranger, because that's what he was. Make himself known to the public as an injured person wearing a cast, crutches, so on and so forth. You go help him, boom, he bangs you over the head. He's walking around being involved with the suicide hotline at the university, pretending to be helping the politicians. He was emulating what is expected. That is what psychopaths, sociopaths do. Oh yeah, I love you, I care, but all in all, they don't. And you get this with Miss Dee Dee Blanchard. She's walking around in public, putting on, she's got this sick kid, getting money, donations, gifts, eating it up. All the while she's starving this kid, making this kid sick, beating her up allegedly, cursing, calling her nasty names, shaving her head, shaving her pubic hair, just doing the most because she was a psychopath. Now, who is going to testify that they knew all along Dee Dee Blanchard was this psychopath? I wait to hear that.
And but they're good. Some are very good con artists, and your mother conned the living heck out of you during your life, in the sense that she gave you what appeared to be love and affection and fun and certain things that were cool. I mean, I know some psychopaths I can have a good time with. I can go to a gathering, or I can hang out with them, and I'm like, I have so much fun with that psycho. I do not want that person in my home.
Exactly.
But I can't say I don't have a relative or two in my entire history. Well, I didn't have those. I'm like, that's a psycho.
Exactly. Well said, Miss Brown. I think many of us know a psychopath. Some of us are psychopaths and don't even know we are psychopathic, that we have this thing in us that is emulating what is expected. Some of us don't really know what love is. To have genuine affection, empathy, and how you will know is a given situation, such as the lady is crossing the street and gets hit by a car. You witness the lady, but you feel nothing that she was hit by the car. Or you feel something, although you do not know her, but you feel bad standing there watching a car accident and bleeding. But there's somebody who feels nothing for the lady hit by the car. And I can say I have met many people who are just as empty. And that's why I'm sitting here thinking about it as I'm listening to Miss Pat speak, that I do believe I've met a few psychopaths and know them personally. I can think of one person personally who I've tolerated utter nonsense from, and they have no empathy for anything. First thing they will say out their mouth, not my problem. I don't know him. A so-called friend I have, same way. He has no empathy for people. Once said to me about the YouTube, why are you talking about people on YouTube you don't know anything about? Why not talk about what's going on here in Knoxville? What's the difference? I don't know them either. Oh, you want me to tell hood tales so I can walk outside my door and get my brains blown out just as easy as I could talking about these other cases. There is no difference. But he's letting me know what he cared about, which was urban life. But deep down inside, he really don't give a fuck about them either. Because I've heard him say it so many times over the years. It ain't my problem. I don't know them. I ain't concerned with what they're doing out west. I could say, oh, I was watching the news and these kids were, burned in a fire, let's say. First thing he would say is, well, who cares? You don't know them. I don't know them. I don't care about somebody burning up in a fire. I said, well, what's the difference between somebody burning up in a fire in, let's say, Idaho versus somebody burning up in a fire in Knoxville? You don't care about the ones that burned in Knoxville. So what difference does it make if I talk about Knoxville versus Idaho? What difference would it make? But he was telling me who he is. I'm empty inside. I don't have empathy for others. And I'm going to tell you a true story. Don't judge me. But I met someone years ago. They had met me on social media, reached out to me. They were incarcerated, and they were in jail, I believe it was Alabama, for murder. They murdered another young person when they were younger. So they were talking to me. I would listen, to the conversation. They didn't want to be mean, so I, let the person talk about their life, whatever, their life in prison. And the one thing that struck me during the conversation, that this person, no way in the world, if I wanted to say down the road, I wanted to date this person who's been locked up for murder, let's just say. One, I don't think that'd be a good idea, because I had to always question, you've murdered a person for nothing. It's just a stupid reason why you murdered the guy. Two, I asked him about empathy. And the first thing he said was, well, I'm going to tell you this, Angela. If right now somebody close to you died and you went to the funeral, whatever, you're crying, upset, I feel bad for you to be upset, but I ain't upset. I'm not feeling nothing for the dead person in the casket. So I weighed that at that time, because, it was just conversation. I wasn't dating him or anything like that. I wasn't even trying to date him. He was just somebody that reached out to me. I think it was through the date site many years ago. And I think back to that. If you have murdered somebody and you're in prison, you murdered them as a teenager or whatever, when you get out, how are you going to navigate when you get out? Because you're basically telling me, I don't feel anything, period. So that would lead me to believe that's why you murdered that boy. You didn't feel anything for him. Because I can't remember what happened, but I do believe it was something petty why he murdered the boy. Something petty. So you stolen a whole life over nothing. One day you'll probably be released, which he did notify me about 2 years ago that he was getting out of prison. And I think that was just some old mind game, just to probably get some attention. But nonetheless, I believe he would not fare well with somebody dating him. Because to say, well, I feel bad that you feel bad. You lost your relative, whomever, parent, whatever. But I ain't feeling nothing. Really makes no sense to even say that you would feel bad that I'm feeling bad. Because it really makes no sense. But anyway, that's an old story. Let's get down to this commentary here. Thank you all so much for listening.
And I would never let my kids go to their home. But I had been at like pig barbecues with them, and I had a great time with them. They were good conversationalists. I had so much fun. And I knew they didn't give a crap about me.
You're welcome, sweetheart.
And they were fun, like I was going to a movie, but they weren't real because psychopaths are not what you think they are. They're presenting an image and you're falling for it. So you write about how you forgive mom, love mom, blah, blah, blah. Stop it. Oh, please, Gypsy, stop it. Say to yourself, I can accept that something sad happened to my mother when she was a little teeny child and she became a psychopath. And because she became a psychopath, from that point on, she was not someone that I can love or respect or should apologize to. And a lot of times we still want to keep this concept we have to love somebody that doesn't deserve love, and she did not deserve it. You don't have to give it, and you don't have to give forgiveness to her either. Yeah, okay, you're involved in her murder, but she spent more than 20 years trying to murder you.
Right.
In every way, shape, and form.
Exactly.
You were a victim. You were kidnapped. You were kept in. She had total control over you. It's no different than you're a POW over Vietnam.
Very good information. Now, some might have disagreed with you with the POW because if they couldn't escape, those prisoners of war in Vietnam and other countries. So some might not like that comment, Ms. Brown. But nonetheless, I agree with this commentary about downplaying Dee Dee's role. She did try to kill you, Gypsy Rose. So for you to publicly say she had demons, she's not a monster, I love my mother, this, that, and the other, people are going to say, how can you say you love your mother when you plotted to kill her? Because we see these cases all the time of children being abused. As I've told you before with the Wells case and other cases, you don't know what the children feel for their parents. That's an assumption. They don't like their parent. No, you don't like their parents. But that doesn't mean that the child is not favoring his or her mother. When they're living in poor conditions, they're abusing their children. There are children who still want to be with their abusive parents. So you fast forward now, she's doing all this fast talking on TV shows. It is odd to say, I still love my mother. I feel bad about what I did, but I still love my mother. She had a mental problem. Very interesting, because I'm going to say, why do you love her? Why? Why do you love this person? As this lady is saying, she tried to kill you. You were starved. And then what's even worse is that you were grown and still allowing Dee Dee Blanchard to abuse you when most probably would have beat the brakes off of Dee Dee Blanchard. Mother or not, Dee Dee was possibly going to end up dead or Gypsy was going to end up dead. Either one. Because we also get information that she shot at the mother with a BB gun. So when and where did that take place? See, it was inevitable that somebody in that house was going to get hurt. It was just a matter of time. And I'm surprised it went on as long as it did. 23, 24 years of age, I'm allowing you to abuse me? And I can walk, I can talk, I can think for myself, I can use the computer. I've got a cell phone. I've got some way to call somebody to say, please come get me, call the police. I can walk. I'm being held hostage. So now with this new information that I have that she ran away to that convention, I have to say, damn, why didn't she try to stay gone? Why did she holler and scream when Dee Dee found her? But then the flip side, somebody will say, well, Angela, she was brainwashed. She feared for her safety. Mother found her. She probably feels like, well, ain't no need of me opening my mouth out here. Who's going to believe me? And she has mentioned that. That's the reason why I never told anybody, because nobody would believe me, and my mother threatened me if I ever told anybody what she would do to me.
Except that then you think these are my enemies, and you didn't realize your mother was your enemy. You grew up in a situation which was so astonishing and horrible, and you had no way out. And this is, as a profiler, I'm pretty hard line.
Yes, Stockholm syndrome, exactly. That would be the defense of why she went back into the house after running away. I fear this lady. I ain't gonna make a scene. I'm gonna go on and go back because nobody's gonna believe me. Exactly.
Pro death penalty, generally speaking. I'm not nice about people who kill. And you are the one case where I would say it was self-defense. I would not have convicted you. It was self-defense. Yes, there theoretically was some way that you could have told somebody and maybe somebody would help you. But due to what your mother did to you, you had Stockholm syndrome, which meant you thought you couldn't understand a world outside of your mother and the way your mother stated anything to you. So said this was going to happen to you. I will do this to you. You have no way out. There's nothing. Suffering from Stockholm syndrome means you identify enough with the captor, but she was.
Very interesting. She comes in to mention that after you all have put that in the chat. She's now talking about Stockholm syndrome. This would be the basis for why she never ran away again and then ordered the hit on her mother. Gonna go ahead and stay. Nobody's gonna believe me. I'm scared of this big old lady. I can't imagine what she went through. And I'm not here to say she was not abused, because there is evidence that she was abused by the mother. My commentary is about Nick Godejohn. Her speaking on a public platform that he abused her. I don't agree with that. You'd have to show me some proof, Gypsy Rose, that this boy abused you for you to now say what? I'm already suffering from Stockholm syndrome, so I'm easily coerced to go follow in behind another abuser. Because basically that's what she's saying. I've been abused already in life. He's abusing me. And one might agree, well, Angela, she was abused. So maybe this boy did abuse her. But then one's gonna say, well, how's he abusing her? He didn't even live in the same state with her. They were talking on the phone for what? A few years before they even met. So how's he abusing her? She's confided in him. He didn't just go run up to where she lived the first time they talked on the phone. It costs money. He lived in Wisconsin, for God's sake. He lived with his parents. He wasn't viable, self-sufficient. Neither was she. So they were evenly yoked. Two young people living at home with their parents. Not on their own. Not on devices. He's mentally inept, so is she. But they do know a little bit about the world. And that's what you have to decide. Did they know right from wrong? Is she now manipulating? Somebody in the chat is talking about her being a psychopath. Well, we have to see what she does in order for her to say she's a psychopath now. Because we don't know that she's done anything nefarious to label her a psychopath. You got to decide if she's telling the truth about everything that happened to her. Her motive for marrying this guy, you hear in the documentary, she kept dating him because he lived in Louisiana where she wanted to be. So then one can say it's a hustle. She chose a guy who was in the area where she wants to live, but really wasn't that into him. But then yet she'll say she started to like him. But then one would say, well, is it just because of where he lived? That's why she started to like him. What he could do for her. He told her that he worked, had a job. You also hear in the commentary I played, he was at a hospital working at one time. Oh no, that's a commentary I listened to earlier. Scratch that. So he's had a few jobs before this teaching job. And how's that going to fare, working as a teacher? See, so many things we could talk about pertaining to Gypsy Rose.
She was your captor. That it's hard to fathom things up to make it work in any other way. But I will also say this: the medical industry screwed you over. They also made money off you and abused you and used you
Hazel.
and never helped you. And then your mother had, paperwork that said basically you're mentally incompetent. And if you ever run away from home, I can just snatch you up, pull you back in, and nobody's going to believe you. And whether that was true or not, you're going to believe that. And I have to honestly say, I don't know that she wasn't right. Because I don't know if you had run away because she had this power of attorney over you, that you could have fought and said, look, I can even walk. And she would have some excuse for that. And she'd say, here's the paperwork. She's mentally incompetent. And I don't know that they wouldn't have returned you to her. And she might at some point have killed you. So.
Very good point. This lady has been manipulating the system for years. So let's say she went and told somebody and they still returned her to to Dee Blanchard. Because it seems like everything was weighing in Dee's favor with the line and manipulation of the community. So this doctor is making a great point. Imagine running away to only be sent back to the abusive mother. Someone in the chat has mentioned abuse, sexual abuse, that sex can be abusive. Well, let's talk about that. What could he have done to her sexually that would have been deemed abusive for her to still continue to deal with him? But the flip side is someone would still say, well, Angela, she's been abused anyway by the mother, the grandfather, allegedly. So why would we think he couldn't have abused her? I just don't agree. I need a receipt that he held her down, raped her in that house. She felt scared and she ran away with him to Wisconsin. Bring me a receipt. Because if you can steal $4,000, now that we got that information, you bought his ticket there. You could have easily took $4,000 and ran out of the house on your own. Checkmate. So the more I'm getting information about Gypsy Rose, I'm not secure with my thought process favoring her too much. She liked Nick Godejohn. She has said that. So that's why I'm perturbed at her saying he abused her. I've been abused by my mother, abused by my grandfather. If I thought this man has abused me in any way, why am I going to run off with him? And I'm not saying she was in the right frame of mind to make same decisions. Of course she wasn't. But people are going to judge her for that. Now that you get this information of her running away to that convention, she had access to a computer. She's had access at some point to go get some help. But as you hear, Stockholm Syndrome. And we've seen that with many people who have been abducted, that even when the perpetrator trusted to let him or her go to the store, let them out, they still would return back to that house, back into the shed, back into a locked room. We have seen this happen before.
I would say, and this is rare for me, anybody who knows me knows it's really rare. I think that what you did was self-defense. You thought it was her or you, and you were going to die if you didn't kill her. And so you escaped your abductor by, in a sense, hiring somebody to do it for you, but still.
So the doctor here says she believes that this was self-defense. At the beginning of this commentary, Dr. Pat lets you know she doesn't really ride on the ride of these type of cases, with the murdering of the mother, but she is given a pass towards Gypsy's situation with Dee Blanchard. You hear her say it here. I do believe it was self-defense, and she has said throughout this commentary that she also believes that Dee Dee would have killed her. And I think that is true. Because in the end, it's obvious. She was starving the young girl. Whether she could walk or not, get access to food, walk out the door, whatever, however you want to word it, she was mentally gone to still stay in that house when she had a chance to get out of the house, then reach out to somebody on social media, cry to him about her problems, and then tell him what was going on, and then they plot the death of the mother. So it's a toss-up of what you believe, how you feel.
That was the only way out was by killing the person who was keeping you prisoner. And I think that's self-defense. Do I think you should have gone to prison for 10 years that they gave you? No, I think you should have gone to some kind of a psychiatric institute where they would help you. They would have said, okay, you did the wrong thing. You broke the law. But what you went through put you in such a situation where we understand that you had some issues of truly believing that this was your only way out. I think you should have gone to a psychiatric institute and gotten therapy. I don't think you should have gone to prison. And I don't think I've ever said that before. I'm saying that. All right. So I want you to understand, your mother was a psychopath. She exhibited the behaviors, which are called Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which are simply behaviors of a psychopath. It's a methodology of a psychopath. It's not, she didn't have a chemical derangement in her brain that made her Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That's garbage. She's a psychopath. And you don't owe her a damn thing. You don't. Now, I'm not saying you can't have some good memories. I mean, oftentimes you can have good memories after somebody harms you or abuses you. A divorce is often like that. Family members that you've separated from, you can still have early memories that are pleasant. And you can say, well, I appreciate having those good memories. Because in spite of that person being a psychopath or screwing me over, I still have some good memories. And it's okay to have good memories. It's all right, because you should have them. Everybody should take every good memory they ever have and keep them in their file. But they don't have to thank the person who gave them the good memory, because that person didn't give the good memory to you to help you out because they loved you. They gave the good memory to you because they were doing something for themselves, because they were selfish, narcissistic psychopaths. Stop giving too much credit. Stop wasting your time with your mother. Really. Just say, that's my past. I'm putting it over here. It is what it is, and I'm moving on. I don't have to sit here and apologize to my mother for getting her killed. She deserved it. I don't have to give her excuses for what she did to me. She doesn't deserve it. All I can say is maybe when she was a really small child, something went wrong because of her own family. I always feel sorry for babies. Feel sorry for her baby self. Feel sorry for her little 1-year-old, 2-year-old. After that, I don't know.
So this lady basically is saying she deserved to die. How do you all feel about this lady making this commentary? She's also saying she feels sorry for the baby Dee Dee. And we've talked about this before on my network. I've expressed this many times during live streams pertaining to murder, that most abused children grow up to become abusers. So we judge them harshly as abusers, but they're only emulating what was done to them. Childhood. Naturally, it is not right. But as you hear her saying, this lady should have been sent to a mental institution instead of prison. Do you agree or disagree? The prison system isn't designed to reform inmates. There's just not enough money and staff to have everybody see a psychiatrist when they enter into the system. I think most of you know this. And they're not going to waste their money on reforming somebody that's gotten life or the death penalty. What would be the point? Very interesting information here. Did the mother deserve to be murdered by her daughter? I will put that in a poll. Do you believe Nick Godejohn abused Gypsy Rose? Somebody says a psychopath is born, sociopath made. Interesting. The doctor tells you she believes things happened to her in her childhood, which led her down this path, Dee Blanchard, and she would have done this anyway, whether she stayed with the husband or not. You're entitled to your opinion.
Just spending your time thinking you're supposed to somehow have a relationship in your own mind with your mother after, even though she's no longer on the earth, somehow you still have to have this caring relationship with her. I think it's a waste of time. And people say you should always forgive people. I don't agree with that. I've never agreed with that. I think it's okay not to forgive.
Well, Pat Brown, you must not be a Christian because that's the Christian belief. It's in the Bible, if you believe in the Bible, that we ought to forgive our trespassers. But I must say, I do have a hard time forgiving people who have trespassed against me. Naturally, I'm a human. I've done wrong as well. But that's how it is. People say, well, you're supposed to forgive people for yourself, not for them. You're entitled to your interpretation. And I will put that in a poll, too, about forgiveness. Because I still believe there's some people who believe in God, the Bible, who probably have a hard time forgiving people and may feel, why should I have to forgive them? But then the old adage is, well, God forgives you. He lets you still walk upon this dirt knowing you've done wrong. Weigh in. Should we forgive others?
You don't have to forgive when people do horrible things to you and never apologize for it and destroy your life over it. I don't think you have to do that at all. You can say this, Mom, you were a mess. You were a psychopath. You destroyed my life. You messed my life up. I'm still going to survive in spite of you. And wherever you are now, maybe there's a place out there, and maybe God is working with you. Let God forgive you.
That's what I've always said. That's what I've always said.
I'm not even forgetting. I'm not going to forgive. I'm not going to forget. I will accept. You can accept that the person became a psychopath for whatever reasons they became a psychopath. You can accept when somebody does you wrong, but you don't have to forgive and forget.
Well, I have felt like that in many situations where I know the person knew better. So I always have said the same thing. Well, let God work with them. That's not really my job to forgive you, then what? Go back in with you, work with you. No, it doesn't work like that. The scripture, God says I'm supposed to forgive. But he never told me I have to continue to deal with you. And that is where a lot of people get forgiveness misconstrued. The scripture does not tell you to go back in. Somebody pushed you down a flight of stairs. He didn't tell you, oh, by the way, go back and start dealing with that person that just pushed you down a flight of stairs. He's never told us that. He told us to forgive them. He didn't say go back in. See, there's a difference. Because people will judge you harshly and say, well, I know they did you wrong, or you say they did you wrong, but why can't you still try to make it work? Why can't you still date him or her? Why don't you stay in the marriage? Well, why don't you stay with him then? Maybe we should let him punch you around, and then you come back to me and tell me how it felt. Because that's the point. A person's not in your shoes. And many people have forgiven people for heinous crimes. Because I was talking to a friend of mine. She's been on this network. About a year or two ago, I let her come up on a panel to talk about her husband who tried to kill her. And we were talking the other day, and she has seen him out, because they have a child together, and the child's in sports. And I said, it doesn't bother you seeing him out? You don't have any fear that he would try to hurt you again, or just fear him, period? She says, no, I don't have any fear of him. I can walk right past him, see him speak. I don't feel anything towards him. Natural affection, no affection. And I don't fear him. Because that was the question I had. Do you fear him still? And she said, no, I don't fear him. But what he did to her was brutal. Busted in her house and shot her in her bed. I may need to ask her that question. Has she forgiven him? Because I don't remember asking her that the other night. Please go on my YouTube queue and find that video. Very interesting live stream. Should we forgive, Christian or not? Will God hold it against us for not forgiving our trespassers? Not trying to get religious on you, but we know that that's one of the things that God asks of us, is to forgive our trespasses if we are true believers in Christ and the scripture, the Bible. But this lady says, you ain't got to forgive nobody. So I don't know if she's a Christian or not, Miss Pat. But playing her content on the mental situation pertaining to Dee Dee Blanchard. Thank you for joining me.
There are times when you do forgive. When a person comes to you and they say, look, I know I did you wrong. And they make up for it. They apologize, they make up for it. You can forgive them. You may not forget it, but you'll forgive them. But your mother never asked for your forgiveness. You don't have to give it. You don't have to be connected to your mother forever.
Exactly.
Because somehow you want to still believe that she loved you. She is a psychopath. They don't love. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. Just let her go. Just cut that cord. Let her go.
Let her go, says Dr. Brown. So let's ask this question. I have a lot of questions to put on the post for this evening. Does she actually believe that she still loves her mother? Has she forgiven her mother? Or is this a ruse for attention because of all these book deals and documentaries coming out? Newfound fame. She's just giving people something to contend with. Oh, she did a bad thing. She forgives her mother. She still loves her mother. Is Gypsy playing everyone with these comments about her mother? Oh, no, she's not a monster. She just has demons. Well, a demon is a monster, Gypsy. See, everything depends on your interpretation. She has demons, but she's not a monster. Well, somebody's going to say, well, baby, a demon is a monster. So you're basically trying to downplay her role for abusing you. Oh, my mother had problems, but she ain't no monster. This doctor says she's a psychopath. I'm going to weigh in on a person who has experience in dealing with psychopaths, sociopaths, mental clients, let's say. They've gone to school, they've studied this. You have not been to school, Gypsy Rose. You don't even have a college education. You have not majored in psychology, forensic psychology. So you wouldn't know what your mother was. And I'm sure there are going to be people that's going to wonder, do you have traits of Dee Dee Blanchard? I pray we don't find out later that she does. Because I got a feeling the manipulation is already been put on the table. Because I do not agree with that comment about Nick Godejohn. I just don't. I believe the sex was consensual, and I do not think he abused her. I think he actually loved her, and I believe she loved him, or whatever they thought love was at that time. Because this boy thought that they were actually married. So that shows you his mental capacity at that time. And I do not think he would have went out here and killed somebody had he not been asked to by Gypsy Rose. You're going to have to prove that as well. He had the capacity to go murder. Well, we know he did have the capacity because he did do it. But would he have murdered somebody in any other given circumstance? Such as he got mad at them and came up with the plot to murder somebody close to him. See, we don't know. We just know he did kill this lady under the guise from Gypsy Rose.
And be you. You survived her. Thank God for that. All right, that was my speech on her. Now I want to go to Nick. So you didn't know how to get rid of your mother, and you're on the internet, and you're on this guy named Nick, supposedly on a Christian site, which is amusing because he's not one of those at all. And you found a guy who then hooked up with you through the internet, cyberspace, and you found things in common, and eventually you shared your story, and he was like, I'll take it along for you. You were the catalyst for that, but he did the crime. Now, I want to explain something called folie à deux. Folie à deux is when two people probably wouldn't have committed crimes except they got together. Now, the question with folie à deux is like, who is the instigator?
Exactly. That's what I'm
Who
just
is more
asking.
wrong than the other person? I believe strongly that oftentimes the person who deserves all the ill will is the person who is not connected to the situation. You were in a horrific situation where you were imprisoned by your mother, imprisoned and tortured by your mother. Nick's out there, he's not imprisoned and tortured by your mother. He hasn't lived that way for 20 some years. But you tell him the story, he's like, I'll be happy to kill your mother for you. First of all, Nick is also a psychopath. Get that straight. 100% a psychopath. He was an incel, couldn't get women, lived with her parents.
Oh my
Had a
gosh.
failure of a life. Wanted to.
Now she's saying he's an incel. Very interesting. Did you get that notion from him? He's an incel, couldn't get women. Still a young guy, maybe doesn't have a lot of dating experience. But an incel, I would assume, is somebody who didn't like women. Do you get that assertion that he didn't like women? I don't know if I agree with that. I'd have to do some research on that. Because he's on a date site, he's trying to meet somebody. And of course, one can say, well, that doesn't mean anything that he's on a date site, that he didn't like women. But we have not heard of any type of scenarios that he had any issues in school or issues dating women, awkwardness like Brian Kohlberger. So I don't know if I agree that he was an incel. Maybe he was just a quiet kid. He didn't have a lot of experience with girls. He went on a date site trying to meet a girl. I'd have to know more about him before labeling him an incel. But she says he's also a psychopath. I was just asking that question before she spoke this. Would he have committed this crime had he not met Gypsy Rose? I will put all these polls up on my community page. Thank you for joining me.
Rape and kill. He wanted the thrill of raping and killing. That makes him a violent psychopath, possibly a serial killer. And then he ran into you and he's like, what a deal. He knows how to play somebody. He was stoking what you were saying. He was feeding into what you were saying. He was abusing you like your mother.
Wow, she says he was abusing her. Okay.
He was telling you what, I don't know, I don't have every single conversation you ever had, but he's a manipulative psychopath, just like your mother was a manipulative psychopath.
Wow.
Frustrating things is that when you're in a situation where you've been manipulated by a psychopath, you tend to end up with yet another manipulative.
And yes, I did mention that also during this commentary. How easy for her to be manipulated or coerced by somebody else because she's already been abused by her mother and grandfather. But what I have to ask myself, do I agree with this assertion that he's also a psychopath because he made comments about raping her mother and doing those things? Of course, those are very dirty things to say about another human being. But would he have killed somebody else had he not met her? That's what I like to know. This doctor is basically saying he's a psychopath. So I guess that means yes, he would have. Very scary information here. But she is also the one who asked him to kill her mother. Naturally, he could have declined. So some people may agree, well, Angela, he was a psychopath. Why would he agree to do it? But what I'd like to know is what his life was like. Did he exhibit any type of violent tendencies? Is she now saying what? He's the same as her. That's what she's saying. He's the same as the mother. Well, then you also have to say, Miss Brown, if you're going to say that he is the same as Dee, then you also have to put Gypsy Rose as a psychopath as well. You can't have one without the other. Because she's the catalyst to this story, besides the mother's abuse. So you can't go all the way over here on 15th Street and say, well, he's a psychopath too because he said all these nasty things about what he wanted to do to her mother. He killed the mother. Well, what about the orchestrator? She's the orchestrator of all this. And yes, he's responsible as well because he followed through. But how can you have the assertion he's a psychopath, but the orchestrator ain't? Oh, because she didn't want to deal with blood. And she said, oh, I don't like blood. I don't like the sight of blood. So is Gypsy a psychopath too?
They're psychopaths because that seems like comfort zone. That's what you know. And it's hard to wrap your head around, oh, this person's doing some bad things to me too. So he used you and abused you. He killed your mother. He didn't kill your mother for you. He killed your mother because he thought it was fun. And that also he could lock you in to a very sick relationship where he was going to abuse you. That's not a nice guy. Nick is a psychopath. He's in prison not because you said something to him and he fell in love with you and then he wanted to be with you so badly he'd kill your mother for you and you feel bad that you made Nick go to prison for life. No, Nick's a psychopath. He doesn't love you any more than your mother. He doesn't love. He's incapable of it, but he is capable of using.
Wow, interesting.
And he used you just like mommy. He used you to be able to control you and get the thrills that he wanted, which he got a thrill out of killing your mom. He would have got a thrill out of killing, I would say, go on probably to serial homicides. He's probably a serial killer.
Wow.
And he also loved rapes. He's probably a serial rapist in his head. Whether he got around to doing it is another matter.
Scary, very scary information.
That's a nasty piece of work. So, Dick, cancel that guy out too. You don't owe him an apology. Never.
Let me address this person in the chat, Hazel. Who said that he killed her for sex? You'd have to know that was his motive. I'm killing for sex, because if he never brought it up, because basically the psychopath thing is an underlying issue that nobody's going to know about or assume about you if they don't know anything about psychology, okay? Let's just go there. So in order to say he killed her for sex, you got to prove that. Because they were already looped in with each other before the murder of Miss Blanchard. That's why I said I believe she was a willing participant in the sex and the conspiring of the mother. But this doctor here is saying, well, he's a psychopath anyway for doing it. He would have done it anyway. Well, then one could say, well, then what about Gypsy Rose? Would she have eventually just killed her mother? Maybe not bludgeoned her to death, but suffocated her in her sleep. Quieter way of dying, killing a person. You're entitled to your opinion. But in order to say he killed the mother just to have sex with her, well, they'd already done that already, allegedly. So then you got to ask that question. When they had sex in the bathroom, had they already talked about killing the lady? I don't know. I do not know. Let me read somebody's comment. Yoda says, I believe he killed her because he was brainwashed into thinking he was saying Gypsy, saving her. Okay. So that's the whole point of the hypotheses behind everybody's behavior. Some may think the woman wanted attention, needed a place to live, mad because her husband broke up. But this doctor says, no, she was already a psychopath. She was going to do this shit anyway. Same thing with him. She's saying the same about him. He's a user, abuser. He used her, abused her. He was already a psychopath as well. And yes, I do believe you can attract like people. But what we also have to ask ourselves, she was also a grown woman at the time of this murder. If you're going to say her mother was a psychopath, Nick Godejohn is a psychopath, then where does Gypsy Rose fit into being between two psychopaths? Who is she then? Is she a psychopath or a sociopath, Miss Pat Brown? I'm curious.
He deserves to be in prison for life because he's a psychopath too. He's a violent psychopath. Your mother was a psychopath, Nick's a psychopath. So that's your past. Get rid of all that garbage. Now, you're in prison, even though you should probably not have been there you should have been a psychiatric help. But you're in prison and you did seem to grow in prison. And probably because, like you said, you're freer than you were with your mother. So at least you got to interact with people and you got to walk about and you weren't being subjected to medical treatments. I'm happy about that. I'm happy you got as much out of prison as you did. I looked at all your certificates you had in your book. So you went to you did go to some psychological groups that would help you understand things. And I'm glad about that. I wish they'd just simply be more honest about psychopathy. Psychopaths are psychopaths. And a lot of times people veer away from saying the word psychopath. Well, I don't want to call somebody a psychopath. No, I'm going to call your mother a psychopath. I'm going to call Nick a psychopath. Hands down. So I don't want you dealing with psychopaths. And I don't want you to forgive psychopaths, love for psychopaths, or feel guilty for psychopaths. You don't. Get them out of your life. But I was happy to see that you were growing in prison in spite of the situation, which was pretty unusual. All right, so now you've gone through prison. And I saw something happening in prison which concerned me, which is you were hooking up. What you call dating, which is not dating. Gypsy, you don't date in prison. Dating is where you can you can go out with somebody physically. And you can go to dinner, you can go to movies, you can go to a picnic.
Exactly.
You can do whatever you're going to do.
Learn a person's ways.
But you're going to spend time with that person in real life. That's dating. Dating doesn't happen in prison. All that happens in prison, which is what concerns me, is that people wrote you. They started seeing, oh my God, this is Gypsy. Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Oh, and they started writing you. And it's attention. And you have to be careful of yourself. And you've even said this. And people said, maybe she's a narcissist because she just loves attention. Everybody loves attention. And when you're sitting in prison for a really long time, it's hard to refuse attention. And getting letters, people say, hi, Gypsy, blah, blah, blah. It's hard not to like that. And I think this is very important to keep in mind because I'm going to tell you about television work in a little bit because that's another attention getter. But I'm going to get into that because I've been there, done that for many years. And getting letters and from men. Now, there's a whole bunch of people, male and female, who like to hook up with prisoners. And they write letters to prisoners. And sometimes there's an abuse level that goes both ways. And I want you to hear the word abuse. There are people on the outside who get attention by hooking up with prisoners. There's a woman who married Jordan Vandersloot down in South America. She married him. And I'm like, you killed 2 women. What's wrong with your brain? There's a woman who married Ted Bundy. Like, what's wrong with you? The guy's a serial killer. But you're a regular person in a small town, and you have the choice of dating the guy who works at CVS or the girl who works at CVS, or you can hook up with this notorious person in prison. Oh my God! Everybody talks about them, and they become fascinating, and they become somebody that will make you a bigger person. They'll make you somebody. So they start communicating. Now, sometimes people in prison, there's a lot of psychopaths in prison. They'll take really good advantage of that. They will lie like dogs. If you ever go to a prison website, prison dating website, I swear to God, it's true. If I go and look for men on a prison dating website, and I go to one of the regular websites outside of the prison, any of these ones that everybody's on, I will tell you, I am more attracted to the guys in prison than the ones outside. The ones outside are like, oh, my name's Mel. And they're standing against their car, and they're not attractive. And they're like, I like a lady who likes to do a lot of things. It's like, okay, you're creepy. So you go to the prison website, which you get is a really good-looking guy, because he's been lifting weights, right? Really good-looking guy, and he says, what I really want is I like to get to know somebody. I love reading. I love walks on the beach, which you can't do because you're in prison for murder. But you're never going to walk on the beach because you're in prison for life plus 20. But you want to walk on the beach, and you love reading, and you like talking, you like being truthful, and the guy sounds great. I'm looking at this. Oh, this guy sounds really great. Match.com. It's like 100 creepy dudes in a row. But the prison side, I'm like, that one, all look good. Females do the same thing. I've seen females on the websites. I'm like, oh my God, they sound wonderful. Except for when you read their record, it's not quite so nice. But they come across really well because a lot of them are psychopaths and they know how to manipulate. They know what you want to hear. So here's my concern. You have had people approach you when you were in prison. They wanted to, quote, date you. Now, first of all, in my opinion, somebody on the outside should know better than to mess with people in prison for a couple of reasons. One is, why are you doing that? You are living in a town free. There's women or men in your town you can date. Why are you going to a prison website? Now, to do so with somebody in prison, a person who, especially if they're there for homicide, you don't know all the details of why they're there for homicide. So is this really a person you want as a partner in your life to eventually, if you even get out, to marry and have children with? It's two. Why? Why would you, if the person is in prison, like in your situation, Gypsy, I think you shouldn't have been there as you've been, and I say in a place where you could gotten psychiatric help to deal with everything you've been through. But even if you're in prison for whatever, because they put you there, you are now approaching a woman who has never had freedom. She has been abused and a captive of her mother in the most bizarre method I've ever seen. And now she's in prison, supposedly for 10 years, never been free, never lived on her own. And now you're inserting yourself in her life. Do you think that she should be with you, or do you think she should learn how to live on her own? That you should not be there, that she should grow up.
Good question.
Leave prison,
Very good
become
question.
her own self. And then maybe 2 or 3 years later, if you meet her, she's learned how to live in the real world. She's found herself. Then you meet her. But why are you hooking up with somebody who's in prison? That's always concerning. So you had the first guy you hooked up with who broke your heart. Now you've got Ryan. Now you married Ryan. Now I've seen a little bit about Ryan. Teacher, works at special ed. Seems sweet. And supposedly on a dare, he contacted you, which I think, first of all, you're a grown man, dare shouldn't happen. And then he contacts you and he establishes a relationship. Not dating, but a relationship with a person who is needy, who has emotional problems, who needs therapy, who needs to learn how to live. And you are inserting yourself into her life too early. Now, he stayed around. You've gotten out, you've gotten married. I don't know what's going on in your lives now. Your psychiatrist said, I don't think this is a good idea. At least the one that was in the television show. Okay, I don't think it was a good idea. I think you should have gone and lived with your dad and stepmother. Started there because that's a place to stay. Got comfortable with the family, maybe gone to college, maybe gotten a job, maybe worked on your books, whatever you're going to do, live in the real world. And then start dating Ryan. But you didn't. You married him while you're in prison. And you're going straight home with Ryan. And now I begin to wonder, are you just back in the same situation you were with your mother? Now,
Right.
I don't know what kind of guy Ryan is. I'm not saying he's not a good guy. I am praying that he is a genuine fellow. And you're going to say, wow, in spite of the way it looks, he turned out to be a fabulous guy. And I'm happy as heck. Have a great marriage. We're wonderful. And you go on to the sunset. I wish that for you, and I hope Ryan's that guy. But I am concerned that he found you in prison, and he shouldn't have married you when you're in prison. He should have let you come out, live some of your life, and married you 2 years later, if it was still good. I personally think that he shouldn't have done that. So I have concerns. I hope they're wrong. But if it turns out that I'm not wrong, run away as quickly as you can and start living your life. Learn to be by yourself. Learn not to be controlled by anybody else. Learn not to always have to figure out what that other person needs and try to please them. As you said, you struggle because of the way you've been raised, trying to be pleasing to people, a people pleaser, so they will like you and be nice to you and not be mean. And that's totally understandable, which is why you need to be in therapy trying to overcome that. And I think you realize that. But I also think you still love fantasies. You still love the Cinderella story. You still want the Prince Charming, and you still want the love. And I think you still have that in you, which is kind of nice. Not all of that has been killed, but I also think you have some time. You need some time to mature, some time to grow up and into yourself. And I just hope that your marriage isn't going to interfere with that. Let me say that. But I don't know, and maybe you're gonna be lucky as heck. I hope so. I really do. I really do. I mean, I can understand wanting a romantic thing to happen and know that. So anyway, I want to stop with that, and I want to go on to television. Television can be just as bad as your mother. I was in television for 15 years. I did over 3,000 appearances on all the major networks. And let me tell you, they were good at sweet talk. They were good at saying, oh, Pat Brown, I think you're just the best thing ever. You're the best profiler, blah, blah, blah. To get me on the shows and they won't pay me. They like to rip you off as much as they can, never pay you. I've had documentaries tell me, oh, we don't have a budget for that. I'm like, really? Do you work for nothing? No, they don't. But what they can do is find somebody else. Now, you are now Gypsy Rose Blanchard. You might be able to command a lot of money. And you don't know necessarily what you're there for. But let's face it, money is attractive, fame is attractive. So you're going to be, I think, enticed by both of those. When I look at the Lifetime show, I like the beginning because it was, you were sitting there doing comment. You were talking about your life, sitting in a chair. I was happy with that. But then as the show went on, it devolved into a reality show with Ryan. They were in the hotel room with Ryan, and he's calling you. They're on every phone call. And it became a reality show. They're the Kardashians, the new Kardashians. And of course, there's going to be another season. I know it's coming up. It'll be 6-part. Now, they may pay you well, but they're also going to make you a reality show. There's no way that you're just going to sit in a chair and talk about your life anymore. You're going to be the reality show. That reality show can destroy your marriage. That reality show can destroy you because they don't give a crap about you any more than your mother did. This is the way TV works. Sorry, guys. There are good producers out there. I love my good producers. I love the few times I feel like people really gave a crap about me and the stuff we were presenting, so that it was useful stuff, like educational, so that I felt proud of what I accomplished. But I can tell you, I've seen so much in the television world, which they will use the living hell out of you. And if they can get you for nothing, they'll get you for nothing. If they have to pay you, they will. But you're still somebody they're going to manipulate, move around in front of the camera, tell you what you're going to say. They're gonna edit the crap out of you. I've been slandered, edited, and that's why I don't do regular television anymore. I've quit. I rarely will do a television show any longer. Occasionally, I will do a documentary if I absolutely know the conditions under which it occurs, along with the fact that I better be paid up front. Because the show, a lot of these people don't even want to pay because they're like, we're a big production company. You can't even sue us. And they're right. You just never see a check. There's a lot of crooked crap that goes on in the television business. And so, yes, can you make a lot of money if you are important enough for them to want to put in front of a camera and there's basically an auction going on about, because that's what you are. You're an auction item. They don't love you. They don't care about Gypsy. They care about making money off of you. So, and you can use them in return and say, I want to make some money, so hey, this will work for me. But always understand, they are using you like your mother did. There's a lot of psychopathy in the television business and in Hollywood. They don't care. They're in there for the money. And so be careful that they're not going to manipulate you to the point where they're going to destroy your life. Because a lot of people get abused so horribly in the whole television business that it does destroy their lives. Then they get onto drugs again, because drugs are what get them to be able to sit in front of the camera, to be able to go through the fake reality garbage. You know, your whole little romance with Ryan should never have been in that Lifetime show. It should. I started.
Do you agree with the Lifetime, her speaking publicly so soon, being on social media so soon, marrying so soon? Of course, she married him a year or so ago, but should she have gotten married? Should she have just came out, like this lady said, stay with her family, got out on her own? Because that's the truth. She's never been on her own. She's gone from one box to the next. Dee'S box, prison box, now with a stranger. And everybody knows the truth in life, the test of life is being free. The test isn't being locked up. Anybody can commit a crime and get locked up. You don't really have to do much to break the law these days. But to do 8.5 years and never have lived. She's never been to college, never been on her own, never washed clothes on her own. Does she even know how to separate whites from colors? Seriously. Does she even know how to pay a bill? Does she know how to work a debit card, credit card? Does she know how to work the internet? To navigate, to take care of bills, things? You need to know all those things before marrying another human being. You need to know how to wash clothes, clean, cook, take care of yourself, keep up your hygiene. Fill out an application. Basic things that a person needs to know before 1, getting in a relationship, 2, getting married, 3, living in somebody else's house.
Revolted. Like, I didn't want to see Ryan getting ready to get in a car to drive to see you. I didn't want the cameras in every room because that should have been private. That had no business being on television. And you leaving the correctional institution, and them getting in the car finally, I'm free. All of that should have been private for you, but the cameras were rolling. Why were the cameras rolling? Because that's how television works. They don't care about your privacy. They don't care about the privacy of your family, and they won't care about the privacy of your marriage. So, just be aware that Munchausen syndrome by proxy will continue with the television industry because it's not a psychiatric disorder. It's a symptom of psychopathy and people who use other people to get their power and control and their thrills and their money. Your mom made money off of you, didn't she? Also the television industry.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying you can't work in the television industry. I'm just saying, do not let your guard down. Do understand what they're doing to you. And reality shows are garbage, and personally, I think you should never be involved in one. I don't think that helps anybody. I think it's all fake, it's phony, it's disingenuous. It just appalls me. I liked the beginning of the show where you were just giving her speaking your mind, speaking what you went through. I liked that very much, but I did not like it when it devolved into a reality show, and I think that's where the 2nd season will go. I liked your book because that wasn't a reality show. And you write another book that is more in depth, that'll be very good for people. And if you want to do certain shows talking about the psychology of what you went through and Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and you can help people like you want to, because you said you want to do that, I think that's grand. And I think you can help a lot of people. I want to say this. You have a very nice speaking voice. You're very well spoken. And you said you love the dictionary, and I can see it because you've got really good vocabulary. And I was very impressed. And I'm like, it's really good. I like it. I think you have a lot to offer in speaking engagements that will educate. I think you have a lot to offer so many people who go through things that maybe they're not as serious as what you went through, but you understand what they're going through. If you can understand, if you're going to go out there and you want to talk about Munchausen syndrome by proxy, get this straight. It's not a psychological disorder. It is behavior of a psychopath. It is a behavior of a psychopath. So it's not something you'd have something wrong in your brain or you just became this. No, you're a psychopath who is using this methodology in order to get power and control and thrills, sometimes money and attention. And that's what every psychopath wants when they commit their crimes. So please don't help push the concept that this is just some kind of mental illness which a person couldn't help. No, they're psychopaths, and they are so abusive and so conniving and so conning that if you understand that's what they are, then maybe you can protect yourself. You're a psychopath. For a psychopath, you're either useful or you're in the way. And I will say this: you were useful to your mom for a long time. And thank God that she didn't find that you were in her way.
Exactly.
Before you got her killed.
Yeah.
Because if you had gotten in her way,
yeah,
if you started you were already fighting back.
Yeah.
And it would not surprise me that she would have gone to homicide herself.
Yes.
She would have killed you accidentally one night.
I do agree with what she's saying about this worst case scenario. She was starting to get in the way. She's running away. She's on the line. She's broken her phone, computer, this and this, allegedly. She was getting in the way. She was going to get in the way. She was going to let the secret get out. One of you asked about how did she get to the theater. Naturally, she rolled in a wheelchair. When she ran away to that convention, she had to have been in a wheelchair. I doubt that she walked out the door and went to the bus stop and met the guy. She probably rolled in a wheelchair. Probably told him she was in a wheelchair. I don't know, because that's the whole thing about this story. This is about to become some Hollerville mess as well. You're not going to really know how much of what was done to her is the truth or not. I'm not here to say that Dee Dee didn't abuse her. Oh, I believe she abused her. But you got to ask yourself, to what extent? What all was done and not done? Now, you have the doctor here saying that she does believe that Nick Godejohn used her. He was a psychopath. He talked about raping the mother, this and that. But I just don't feel like he abused her. Until there's a diagnosis of who he is, what type of mental issues he has. Because what I have to ask myself is, would he have killed before ever meeting her? Would he have down the line murdered somebody, raped somebody, had he not met her? Now, naturally, of course, a man talking about raping a woman, that is disrespectful. And yes, that is a sign of a sick individual, because that's not something to say. But what I thought was interesting about all that is that they mentioned on her Facebook page that they killed her, which to me was just strange that a person would say that. Why am I going to admit to murdering a person if I want to elude the police? So I do believe he has mental issues. But no, I don't condone posting in social media the murder and also claiming to want to sexually assault the mother. But this lady here is obviously, what's the word I'm using? A professional in her craft of diagnosing mental illness, disorders, behaviors. And her assessment is that Dee Dee Blanchard was a psychopath, and so was Nick Godejohn. I'm not a licensed professional, so I'm just basically giving my opinion, but I just didn't feel like he abused her. But this lady says he did. He used her as well as her mother did. You entitled to your opinion. Thank you for taking the post. Let's finish this commentary. It's almost done.
And that everybody, the grief would pour out. She would get so much attention, and that would be because she knew she was losing you, just like the family annihilated. Well, I can't do anything with these people anymore. I'll just kill them all off, and I'll go on and get a new life. She could have done that to you.
What are you talking about?
And because I think it would have been you or her. And you're either useful or you're in the way. And so that's it. That's my talk to you, Gypsy, and to everybody else who's listening who is in a situation where they're dealing with psychopaths in their lives. Could be their parents. It could be a spouse. It could be sometimes children are psychopaths, and the parents have to deal with them. So I think people need to understand psychopathy a lot more. Stop running around and trying not to say the word psychopath and come up with fancier terms. Person's a narcissist. The person is got Munchausen syndrome epilepsy. The person has this or that. No, a lot of times they're just psychopaths. And once you get that straight in your head, you have a lot more power and control for yourself. So anyway, Gypsy, I wish you the best. I'm looking forward to your next book. And I do hope your marriage works out. But if it doesn't,
I just going to put a poll up about that. Wow.
And spend some time becoming you, because you haven't ever had that chance. And I think sometimes it's best to be alone for a period of time.
Yes, I agree.
Where you can explore the world without somebody else always being there. And without, you can have people around you, but maybe being your own self is important. I hope Brian allows that to happen in your life. I hope you don't allow him not to allow that to happen. So I wish you the best in the marriage. I mean, if you get a good one, that's great. But if you don't, carry on.
Wow.
And I look forward to seeing how things go in the future. And anybody watching this show, and my open letter to Gypsy, I hope you also learn something from it, because this is an educational channel. I don't do this just for the clicks, although some people say, well, you're using her too. All right, I'm not going to argue some of that, but, this is an educational channel, and I try to bring truth to people, stuff that will help them in their life. So anyway, thank you for being here. If you are new to the channel, you can like and subscribe. Just had to put that in at the end. Gypsy, you don't have to like and subscribe. If you ever do see this and you'd like to contact me, profilerpatbrown@gmail.com. I'd be happy to, anytime you just wanted to talk and figure stuff out. I'm a pretty down-to-earth person, so I think we might get along. And anyway, but I wish you the best, and I hope you learned something from this. I hope everybody else did too. And again, thank you for being here.
All right, everybody, that's Pat Brown. Feel free to go over to her network to get this. Books available on Amazon where books are sold. Thank you very much, Miss Brown. She's a profiler. Hope you don't mind me playing your content. It is for educational purposes only, and fair use of copyrights inside of this information. 49 watching. Thank you all so much for coming into the chat to give your opinion. Please take the polls. Some of them have already been completed. Some of you say she's not prepared for what lies ahead of her. So random. What will lie ahead? Do you believe she's a psychopath? Number one, herself. Do you believe she's manipulating the media? Do you believe the things that she has said happened to her by her mother? So many questions you can ask. Do you believe she was abused by Nick Godejohn? That is why I played this profiler's information, so you can get a glimpse into her assessment of Dee Blanchard, her assessment of Nick Godejohn. But the one thing I did not hear her assess was her, unless I didn't hear it all. I don't know. I didn't hear her assess her personality, who she is, because she's assessed everybody else in the story except for Gypsy Rose. So is Gypsy Rose a psychopath, sociopath? She's learned from the best to be manipulative. She did ask this young man to kill her mother. So that's why I said I don't believe he abused her. I don't have a mental diagnosis for him to say that he's also a psychopath or whatever. I can only go by what she has brought to the table. So now we will wait to see what he has to say about being in prison, his feelings now, present tense, present day. Defense is trying to get him an appeal. Will he get an appeal? Number one, if it goes to trial, this appeal, how will the jury weigh? Will they give him a lighter sentence than life without parole? Will we find out he does have a mental disability? If so, what is it? It was interesting how she compared the two, both young, living at home with their parents, calling him an incel. Is he an incel? Because I thought incels didn't like women. But him mentioning the part about raping the mother, one would say, well, that's derogatory commentary of an incel, a woman hater. Somebody in the chat mentions him doing this again, getting out for sex. So I never assumed he killed her for sex. I never looked at it like that. I just looked at it as if he liked her. Because as I said, when you are not a psychiatrist or psychologist or profiler, you're not going to think like how they think. They're thinking from the underroot belly of why these people have done what they've done. Most of us, obvious question, why? Why? But these mental professionals, they go to the root of the problem, which usually starts in childhood, and then the diagnosis of what led them to the place they ended up, which is murder. Oh, thank you all so much for joining me. I appreciate you all stopping by. Thank you for watching my previous content. Please go into YouTube Q. I have videos that were uploaded yesterday pertaining to Boy H and his mother and the father. I do not have any more information pertaining to the health of Miss Allie. Last live stream, they said they would not be giving any information pertaining to her, so I don't have anything to bring to the table pertaining to them. But feel free to check out those last live streams that were done yesterday evening. Once again, this content is pertaining to Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who has been free from penitentiary. She's currently married to a Ryan Anderson, and there are docuseries and books available and coming out pertaining to her commentary of being in prison and what happened while she was a child an adult under the care of Dee Dee Blanchard. You're entitled to believe what she is told is the truth, factual, not factual, half and half, I don't know. But as I said, I just don't believe this guy abused her. But this doctor says otherwise. So you're entitled to your opinion, to believe whatever you want to believe about Nick Godejohn and his role that fateful night in Missouri. Is he a psychopath? Would he have committed a crime such as murder had he not met Gypsy Rose? That's what I'd like to know. His mental diagnosis, any tendencies of violence, because I don't want to downplay, that rape comment at all, but, against her mother. But would he have done this had he never met her? Let's say they never met. Would he have gone out here and sexually assaulted a woman, number one, or a child? And would he have also committed murder? That's my question. And I'll put that in the chat right now. I don't know if I post that poll up or not. So we'll put it up here before I check out of here. Thank you all so much. Oh, I gotta put this poll down first. Hold on a minute. "100% of you do believe she should have waited before going to social media and TV. Very interesting. 85% of you believe he is a fame whore, Mr. Ryan Anderson. Wow, that's deep. Let's put up a poll about Mr. Nick Godejohn. Okay, put an option 2. Hold on, you guys. So I always put not sure in there just in case some of you aren't sure about your answer. Hold on a minute. "91% of you don't believe the marriage will work between Ryan and Gypsy Rose." Very interesting. Very interesting. 12 votes. Okay. Take the polls. Some of them are complete, so you won't be able to take them, but you could always comment below the video. Let's see what this poll results are. Would Nick have committed murder, essay, if he hadn't met Gypsy? 100% says no. No yeses and no not sures. Wow, 7 votes. Very interesting. So most of you believe that the husband is not genuine, doing this for attention. You hear the doctor mention that during this live stream. You also hear she believes that Nick is a psychopath as well as her late mother. She also believes the girl should have been out on her own before marrying this man, because naturally she married him in jail. So she should have been on her own. Also, put a poll up about her being on TV, social media. This lady also believes she should not have been on TV doing any TV series pertaining to their relationship. That it's okay for her giving, her synopsis about what happened with her life with Dee Dee, but not have the cameras following him around talking to the husband, because it's more like reality TV and it's disingenuous. Do you agree with that as well? That the husband shouldn't have been in the docuseries, but people would want him in the docuseries because they're going to say, well, I don't want to just hear about her life in jail. She's now married to somebody. Let me hear about him. Let me hear the story, the background of the two. Now she's released. People are going to want to see him, what he's about, what he's doing. The one thing I'm going to say before I check out of here, this is a 2-hour plus live stream. I knew it was going to run long, but I don't know if he's genuine or not. But as the doctor says, you do have to question, why would this man want her? What reasoning would you want to date somebody that's, number one, incarcerated? Number two, they conspired to kill their mother, or anybody for that matter. What are you gaining by wanting to talk to her, deal with her, marry her? Now she's living in your house, you're playing house with her. Will we find out that there's something defective with Mr. Ryan? There's something mentally wrong with him. He's looking for something, chasing something. The fact that he's a school teacher of children is kind of bothersome, because maybe there's something not right with him. And it's not to say that he's a bad person, but just saying, you're a school teacher, you work with children, and then you go off and start writing letters to a person accused of conspiring to kill another human being, convicted of it, not allegations, admitted to it, convicted. You obviously didn't think about your chosen career, profession once it got out, number one. The motive. The motive is number one. Your livelihood, number two. You now are a teacher working in a school district, been fired from one or left one because of this getting out that you were coinciding with her, and you didn't think that people weren't going to find out. You have been out for work, running around with her all over New York City to all these different events. You think that wasn't going to get back to the school district where you were? What if you look up and you're right back in that same situation again, Mr. Anderson? Then we'd have to say, how are you going to provide for you and your wife? I'm assuming she also has to go see a parole officer, since she only got out on 85%. Naturally, she has to get permission before going here, there, and there. And you're also supposed to contact the parole office when you first get out of prison. Some of you may not know that, but you have a timeline before going in to check in with your parole officer, the chosen one. So how long was it before she got out was she mandated to go check in? Man or woman? Curious. Are they giving her permission to travel now? Because I'm sure they've heard of all this running around doing interviews. I don't think they've planned this out thoroughly. I think she was looking for somebody that could help her while she's in there. We know that lots of people hook up with people allegedly, really to just get monies to put on the book. And I'm not saying that people aren't lonely in prison. Of course you're going to get lonely. But as you hear this doctor say, she did not have no relationship in the damn jail. You're not dating anyone. Of course, because I've said that before in my live streams. The true test of life is being out here free. Walking around, paying bills, going places, sharing things, holding conversations, seeing how a person lives, dealing with their friends, their family, vice versa. You don't get that in prison. You are sheltered in prison. It's the real world, but you're still sheltered. So you're only dealing with what's going on in the prison walls. Out here is harder because you have to have self-control, impulse control that could either put you in jail or keep you out of jail and prison. She's never lived on her own. Doesn't know what it's like to pay bills, be responsible. So yes, she should have moved in with her family or a halfway house and then got a job, driver's license, or driver license first, whichever order you want to put it in, got a car, if allowed by, if let's say she went and did a halfway house. But naturally, she probably want to be with her family. But just saying, she needs to have a license. She needs to learn how to drive. She needs to do basic things that young people learn to do, that she was not afforded the opportunity while living with Dee Blanchard. She needs to know what it's like to navigate and deal with people on the outside. Because as I said, she's only dealing with people's personalities in a confined area. Out here, it's totally different. Thousands of attitudes, dispositions, walking past people you don't know anything about at the Starbucks, McDonald's, the pharmacy, the job. It's a lot to deal with. Then we have to ask ourselves, how is she going to deal with adversity out here? Negative comments, stares, looks. I don't think she's thought about that. She's just thought about being free. And naturally, that is all a person's going to think about. I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to be free. But the old saying is that free ain't really free. And most of you should know what that means if you've ever dealt with getting something for free. That sometimes there are repercussions with getting free. Free housing, free food, free gifts. Sometimes there's a price to pay. And I think she talks too much. The sexual comments about her husband, her and the sister, or whoever that girl was on the IG, talking about the Dee'S fire. Why in the world would you ever say that about your man? That is some derogatory, ghetto ratchet, young folk talk. And I'm sure there's women my age who probably talk like that on a live. It's inappropriate. Then there are people raising a stink about her taking pictures with her nephew and asking girls to go into his DM, which some people thought that was inappropriate. Why are you trying to get people to go in his DM, women to go in his DM? Girls, excuse me, sorry. Because she doesn't have a filter. She's new to life. She made grown folks' decisions by killing her mother, but she's not mentally equipped as of yet to be dealing with people and emotions and circumstances. She's going to have to be rewired. Because when you're a child, you only navigate as a child. You navigate according to the life that has been afforded to you. So she didn't have a good childhood. She didn't have a good adolescence, teenage life, young adult life. Then she went straight from young adult into penitentiary. So she has to be rewired. And with that comes repercussions. Because now you've got to try to learn an alleged new way of living, appropriate way of living versus what you've already been taught and experienced. And she's already in her 30s, so that's a dangerous slope. For she, for others, and Mr. Ryan as well. Because imagine being put in this situation again. Things don't go her way. She's unhappy. She's mad at the world. And she decides she don't want to be bothered with Mr. Ryan. He's getting on her nerves. She don't like him. Or he becomes a problem for her. Or she becomes a problem for him. Now imagine these two going toe-to-toe, arguing, and something jumps off. So you have to assess the situation for what it's worth. She has been in a situation where someone was brutally killed. She was in another room while her mother was bludgeoned to death 17 times by the boyfriend. And whether she still loves her mother, don't love her mother, putting on for the camera, trying to pretend she cares for her mother, downplaying her mother's role, you will never know the truth because she's been groomed as an actress. Don't know if she really cares for Ryan Anderson or not. Don't know if he really cares for her or not. Could be a grift situation times 2. Say, well, I'm going to grift to get out this prison and have a place to fucking sleep. I'm going to hook up with this girl and get all I can get off of her because I know she's doing this, this, and this. Get attention, get notoriety. I'm not really popular. Stay woke. What if you find that out? They're both double juggling. Both are hustling each other. She's hustling him to have a place to stay. He's hustling her for attention. Because he knew this day was going to come. She would get out. People are going to want to talk to her. She's done a documentary. She was working with this last documentary for Lifetime, so on and so forth, books, this and that. He knew all that. So one would say, what was his initial reasoning for reaching out to her besides, I felt sorry for her? You can feel sorry for somebody, but it does not mean you need to become a pen pal or write them in jail. And the fact that his friends had talked about writing some reality star or reaching out to them, he took it upon himself to say, oh, well, I can do that. I'll reach out to Gypsy Rose. But Gypsy Rose was not a reality TV star. She helped murder somebody. That's totally different. I wouldn't consider her a movie star or a musician to say, oh, I want to reach out to them. Will we find out? He's detached from reality, Mr. Ryan Anderson. That is what led him to reach out to her in the first place. Cornbread says just looking for trouble. Which one, Cornbread? Which one are you speaking of, sweetheart? Who's looking for trouble? She or he? Or both? Both. Okay. And I'm going to leave on that note. Cornbread says they're both looking for trouble. Well, I hope not, because she's been in penitentiary and she knows what it's like to be in prison. But we also got to remember she found solace there because of the life she had with her mother. Prison and jail is the worst place to go, allegedly. But if you live a certain type of mindset, you would find comfort in jail or prison. As we've learned that with homeless people. They commit petty crimes, some of them just to get a warm bed to go to jail. Imagine that. Tired of being on the street homeless, can't make a living out here, don't choose to work, or whatever their situations are, mental illness, whatever, commit a petty crime such as theft at Walmart or convenience store just so you can have somewhere to sleep. That's been said before about some homeless people's ideology. So I can't see anybody wanting to go to jail. But you do have people who act like they want to be there. They want to go there. They want to die in prison. Because when you repeatedly keep breaking the law, that is the message you're sending to the universe. Well, I like jail. I like prison. I want to go back. Let's hope for her sake she doesn't want to go back. And that she will have a productive life with this man. And they will treat each other accordingly and live happily ever after. That's my commentary, everybody. Pat Brown was the profiler that you heard in this commentary. Feel free to check out her content in the YouTube queue. Please check out my live streams from yesterday pertaining to Boy H, his father, and Allie. Do not have an update on her health care. I will be back later this week with more commentary. Please check my community posts for updates, breaking news, polls. I do have movie suggestions for this past week and weekend. The house that Jack built, playing on Roku, very wicked serial killer movie. And I also found something I watched briefly last night called 7 times 7. Haven't finished that. I will put that on a suggestion for this week. And another one called Outposts. I'll put up 2 movie suggestions for the week for your enjoyment. There's a winter storm on its way to Tennessee. So hopefully I will be able to go live tomorrow if nothing breaks down. But this snowstorm, expected 3 to 6 inches, or I'll just say snow, is expected to be from, I guess, Bledsoe County, which is going west Tennessee, all the way up into Knox County, Hawkins County, Washington County, Southwest Virginia. So anybody living in any of these areas from the start of West Tennessee to Anderson County, Knox County, Blount County, Smoky Mountains, Hawkins, Washington County, all the way up to Virginia, we are expecting snow. So if you have not gotten your shopping done, I advise you right now to please go to the grocery store and get what you need. Milk, eggs, butter, food, soup, because the storm will start at 1 in the morning. So snow, I believe, is going to start at 1 or 7 a.m., one or 2. So you need to hurry up and get yourself out and get your groceries. It's very cold. I have not been outside, but I'm sitting inside with a robe on, a house dress, socks, fuzzy stones, slippers, and my feet are cold with socks on. And I have the heat on at least 68, 69. So that should tell you something. It's cold outside. And then, this place I'm in is older, so it's going to be drafty. But nonetheless, if you know somebody that's homeless, make sure they get in before the snow touches down. Knoxville has some warming centers they're supposed to be setting up and need volunteers. So if anybody wants to help with volunteer ministry and the Salvation Army and CARM, please give them a call and give your services if you can. Once again, anybody living in the general Knoxville, Tennessee area, all the way up to Southwest Virginia, we're expecting snow. So if you need to get out, you need to get out right now before it gets late, before the grocery store is closed, to get whatever you need or any extra blankets or heaters. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Deganji, 129 Cash App, Stickers and Chats, always welcome to the live streams. Thank you all for the donations. Thank you all for stopping in to view this content pertaining to Gypsy Rose. The profile done by Pat Brown on her mother, Dee Blanchard. And also, she profiled Mr. Nicholas Godejohn, and also believes that he's also a psychopath. Very interesting information. What I'd like to know is, I'd like an assessment done on her. And I do believe somebody has some information pertaining to her behavior. I did watch one content of her behavior when she was in jail, but I'd like someone to assess her behavior since she's been released. And there's a guy, a doctor, I did put that on his YouTube channel, if he could assess her behavior now. If he could make a video of what he has seen of her thus far. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful week. Once again, Happy New Year. Please stay warm. Please stay inside once the weather hits, because the roads will naturally have snow. So whether you're on the East Coast or you're down here where I am, please be safe. Please make sure not to leave anything close to your blankets and furniture, such as heaters, older heaters. Ask not to catch your bedding and furniture on fire. Please do not try to heat your house with a stove, because that is dangerous. Try to keep your thermostat at one number, because I've just learned moving it up and down makes it higher, your bill higher. So keep it at 68 if you can stand it. But naturally, elderly people get more cold, so they'll probably jack it up, but just don't mess with the thermostat if you can. Try not to, because your bill will be astronomical by the time February gets here. Love all of you. Thank you so much. Oh, you're so wonderful. Thank you. You're welcome. Hi, love. Thank you, sweetie. You all take care too. I'll try to come back later tomorrow with more information. May try to find from Hollerville and Gypsy Rose, and because there's some content I haven't brought in a year. I have been meaning to give you some information on Scientology, some information on the LSD church, Latter-day Saint, LDS church. So there's some things I hadn't talked about that I had put on a back burner, because every time I turn around, it was always an update on a certain story. So I always put those commentaries on the back burner. But I do want to talk about the migration in Chicago, Texas, and New York. I got to get that out. I might talk about that tonight, because I got to get that out. That's something that's a month old. I need to get everyone's opinion about all the migrants coming into the United States being bused from state to state, city to city. New York closed down a school last week just so they could keep these people warm and a place to stay. Do you think that was right? We're going to chop that up next upcoming live stream. How do you feel about the migration in the United States at the current moment? Thank you, Lolo. Thank you for being a fan of this network too, honey. God bless all of you. Prayers for Summer Wells, brothers, any other missing children, abused children, Boy H and his sister, and prayers for Miss Ellie. Do not have an update, but if I get one, I'll bring it to you. Where you? Oh, you're in Illinois. Okay. Well, I've lived that Chicago life, so I know all about that weather. And I don't ever want to relive that again. I do not. I can't deal with this little minor cold here. Because most people that's from the East Coast and up north, this to them, 30 degrees, 20 degrees ain't nothing to them. But it is to me. I don't like being cold. God bless all of you. Thank you so much. Going to put some polls up this evening. So go over to my community page and take those polls. I'll read them during the next live stream. You all have a wonderful week. And please check out my suggestions for movies. The Queen has been watching some very interesting movies. The one movie I watched last night called The Outpost, that is the craziest movie. I thought the stuff I watched last week was crazy. This one was just outrageous. It's about a woman who was attacked by her boyfriend. So she goes out into the wilderness to watch for fires in the wilderness. And Lord have mercy, I'm going to leave it right there. Not going to tell you the premise. It is playing free on the Roku channel. Feel free to check it out. Outpost, also 7 by The House That Jack Built. These are all movies playing on Roku channel. Thank you for joining me. God bless all of you. You've been listening to the Vault Excel. You're welcome, sweetheart. Thank you.